Lloyd, the voice of the Los Angeles Dodgers.
Thank you, Brad. Hi, everybody, and a very pleasant good evening to you once again, wherever you may be. Hope you pull up a chair and relax a little bit, and we'll watch the National and the American League All-Stars go after each other. In fact, it's only fitting Pearl Bailey, who sang before the ball game, one of her favorite lines, sums it up. This ain't no bad crowd to hang around with. They are here. Jim Palmer, who said before the ball game that he is tired, even though he has had 6 days rest. And then when you look up the numbers, you can understand why. It used to be if a fella got over 250 innings in the big leagues, he was indeed a workhorse. Well, as Palmer is tuning up here in the middle of July, with half the year over, he has worked 188 innings. In other words, at the rate he's going, he'll finish up left-handed. But Palmer, 11-8, has worked 8 innings of all-star experience without allowing a run. He has a big move. He works directly over the top, and that move is calculated to bother the hitter. It's big, but it is very slow and easy. And if you think the fastball is coming off that slow and easy move, it'll be on top of you. Then if you decide to quicken that bat and get out in front a little bit, with the very same move, he'll come back with that big, slow curve. So the National League All-Stars will send up Joe Morgan, Steve Garvey, and Dave Parker, and there's a sizable challenge out there on the mound in Mr. Jim Palmer. And, of course, for Palmer, he will go down in history, a Cy Young Award winner 3 times in the last 4 years, the only pitcher in American League history ever to win the honor 3 times, and he's won 26 of his last 7 seasons. So Jim Palmer working on Joe Morgan. Morgan was the most valuable player in the 72 All-Star game, and he has credentials from here to Cincinnati. Little Joe, left-hand batter, came in with a dozen home runs, 47 RBIs, and a .310 batting average, 29 stolen bases to fill out the picture. And he takes a fastball high, ball 1-0. In this spacious ballpark, although Morgan is basically a pull hitter, the American League plays him almost straight away. Richie Zisk, however, gives him the left field line. The 1-0 pitch inside of the knuckles, ball 2-0. Bill Kunkel is the plate umpire. Kunkel, way back in 1963, was a member of the New York Yankees pitching staff, the year the Yankees lost the World Series here. The 2-0 pitch on the way. Morgan checks up, and that's high. Ball 3-0. So Jim Palmer, who is tired, and perhaps with 6 days rest, a little rusty, falls behind immediately 3-0 to Joe Morgan. Danny Ozark of the Phillies coaching at first, Tommy Lasorda of the Dodgers at third, and the 3-0 pitch down the line. 3-1. Carew and Randolph, Burleson and Brett, Zisk, Yastrzemski, and Jackson in the outfield. Carlton Fisk in a crouch back of the plate hanging out a sign. 3-1 fastball is foul back. 3-2. Fastball up around the letters. Morgan, I guess, would be baseball's answer to Sugar Ray Robinson. In Robinson's heyday, people were forever saying to you, pound for pound, the greatest fighter, etc. Well, boy, does that ever fit this little guy. He is 5'8", and he is a team picture. The 3-2 pitch is a high drive into right field. Reggie Smith goes back to the track. To the wall. It's gone. Joe Morgan, with as much power as anybody around, clears the right field wall and puts the National League out in front immediately, 1-0. And, of course, then, it is that strong left-handed pull hitter that has always dominated Yankee Stadium from the days of Babe Ruth. And Joe Morgan went down there where it is 310 right down the line and then sort of goes out to 353. Reggie Jackson had backed up against the wall. He had no shot. Here's Steve Garvey, who has been fighting a terrific slump. He takes an off-speed pitch high, ball 1-0. Garvey comes in with 22 home runs, but he's had only 8 hits in his last 51 at-bats in regular season play. Breaking ball is swung on and missed, and the count 1-1. So little Joe does what he does so well. 3-2, and you challenge him, and he meets the challenge head-on with a home run. Now the 1-1 pitch on the way to Garvey. Foul back. That got a little bit of Carlton Fisk, and the count 1-2. Fisk, of course, has had his problems injury-wise. Shaken up for a moment. Backed up by Butch Weiniger and Thurman Munson. Although if he needs help, Weiniger will probably catch ahead of Munson, who's pretty well banged up. Going into this All-Star game, injuries have been very much a part of the story. The 1-2 pitch to Garvey. Fastball got him looking on the inside corner. Strike 3 called. Let's pause 5 seconds for station identification. This is the CBS Radio Network. Dave Parker, perhaps the best big man in the league, and that's saying a lot because he also has Dave Winfield right with him. But Big Parker is a sight to behold, hitting .330 as he comes into the game. 14 home runs, 64 runs batted in, 6'6", left-hand batter. Palmer into the windup. Jim Reddy over the top fastball, and he's late, fouled it away. That's a typical example of somebody who is hitting off Palmer for the first time, to be late on the fastball. So Parker, a little bit conned by that slow windup of Jim Palmer. 1-0 in favor of the National League as Joe Morgan cleared the right field fence on a 3-2 fastball. The strike 1 pitch off speed bounced in front of the plate, and the count 1-1. We were talking about injuries going into this 48th All-Star game. Fellows like Don Money, Frank Tanana, Mark Fidrich, Vida Blue, Carl Yastrzemski, and Thurman Munson are all banged up, although Yastrzemski is starting. Here's the 1-1 pitch to Parker, off speed and high, ball 2-1. And of course, for the National League, Bruce Sutter unable to come, so Rich Gossage took his place. John Candelaria is here with an ailing back. He will not pitch. The 2-1 pitch is lined to left field, base hit. Up with the ball is Richie Zisk. Parker makes a turn and holds at first base. And the batter now is George Foster.
Then last year in Philadelphia, Foster ignited the National League with a tremendous home run to left center field in Veterans Stadium. He was named the most valuable player in that All-Star game.
And if they didn't name him, he wouldn't tell anybody about it. He might be as quiet and soft-spoken a ball player as the league has. He had a remarkable year last year, and the Giants, I guess, and it has nothing to do with player personnel exactly, but the trade, George Foster for Frank Duffy, will long be forgotten if possible. Palmer out of a stretch, looks at Parker, and works low and away to Foster. Ball 1-0. In talking to Sparky Anderson before the ball game, as you can imagine, and I'm sure Billy Martin would agree, in an all-star game, signs are kept to a minimum, and the chances are the hitter is on his own in almost every instance. Oh, maybe 3-0 leading off the inning, they might put the brakes on him and have him take. But I would say any other time when you have the great hitters as we have tonight, they'll be on their own hitting. Parker off the bag, held on by Carew. Foster hammers it into left center field, base hit. Yastrzemski on that bag leg, limping noticeably as he comes up with it. Lasorda is sending Parker home. Burleson slow to fifth. Holding at second base, George Foster. That was a marvelous throw by Rick Burleson from left center field. But Parker, a big man who does everything well, is able to beat the tag by Carlin Fisk.
And right away, Ben, we see the outfield columns of Billy Martin. As you pointed out, calling that hit by Foster, Yastrzemski was limping. You also picked up on the throw. Burleson has one of the strongest arms among shortstops in the American League, but yet he didn't get the ball quick enough to do any good with it.
And it's typical of Tommy Lasorda to send him in. All you have is Greg Lazinski and Ron Say to pick him up at third, but Lasorda was not about to let anybody just run a notch or two, which is all the way. So Parker scores. It is 2-0 in favor of the National League, and they're loosening up in the American League bullpen. Palmer deals, and Lazinski takes high. Ball 1-0.
Then you picked up on the bullpen. Morgan, of course, was able to pull the ball down the line. Parker went the opposite way off the fastball, but Foster got around extremely well on Palmer.
And Lazinski, who might be considered a power hitter unless you see him every day, is a good hitter. Never mind power. Pitch in the dirt. Goes behind Fisk. Over to third goes George Foster. And I'm sure they will rule it a wild pitch. And Palmer looks like the man he said he was. Very tired.
And out in the bullpen, Jim Kern of the Cleveland Indians is up and throwing right now for Billy Martin in the first inning.
This would be a very premature appearance for Jim Kern, and the American League very thin on pitchers. They came into the game with only 7, and they certainly don't want Palmer to go out earlier than, let's say, at the end of 3. But he is on the rope. So with Foster at third, 1 out, the infield is up, 2-0, and you know Lazinski is hitting if he likes the pitch. Palmer set, delivers, and he swung on and missed for a strike. 2-1.
Ben, Saturday afternoon at Veterans Stadium, 134 degrees on that artificial turf, and Luzinski said, I couldn't even feel the metal spike. I couldn't touch it with my hand. It was so hot over there.
They're still talking about it. Here's a 2-1 pitch to Luzinski, and that's fouled away. He was jammed that time. A good pitch by Palmer, 2-2. Jim, among other things, has a rather high set. When he brings his hands together, he is not at the belt buckle. He is somewhere between the shoulders and the belt, and it's pretty quick. So he does a good job, I'm sure, of holding base runners on during the year. However, in this instance, he has Foster at third and 1 out, and a hitter who comes into this game, Luzinski, batting .331. Powerhouse kid who could easily have gone on football scholarships because everybody wanted him. But here he is, a mainstay for the Phillies. Now the 2-2 pitch on the way. Palmer's slow freight is way inside. Ball 3, and there was not very much on the pitch. So Jimmy looks weary. 3-2 the count to Luzinski. 1 out in case you joined us late. Morgan hit a 3-2 pitch for a home run to right. Parker single to left. Foster doubled the left center, scoring Parker, and Foster advanced to third on a wild pitch. And the count 3-2 to Luzinski. Palmer deals, and it's fouled away. Last night, Mr. and Mrs. Jim Palmer went to the theater with Mr. and Mrs. Don Sutton to see, appropriately enough, Side by Side by Sondheim. And here they are battling each other tonight. And although I'm sure the players start thinking it's an exhibition, by the time the pregame festivities are over and a crowd of 56,000 cheering, it's a ball game. Pitch fouled away again by Luzinski. So Greg Luzinski, who pays the price, he strikes out 70-some-odd times, better than 25%. But nevertheless, with a .331 average, you shudder to think if he cut down on his strikeouts, what he'd hit and how far would he hit them. 2-0 National League, just the start of things. Top of the first inning. 1 out. 3-2 pitch to Luzinski. Foul back, and he was late. He barely got around on it. That was not a good Luzinski swing. So he's having some problems with Palmer's stroke. On deck, Ron Cey.
And Ben, Jim Palmer, having already given up 2 runs in the first inning, we can see that Billy Martin does not want to concede run number 3, and he has Randolph in and also pulled over slightly towards second base. All the infielders are in.
Luzinski waiting on a full count. 1 away in the first inning. Palmer out of his stretch. Eyeballs Foster down the line. Luzinski times a breaking ball. It's a high drive to right field. Jackson to the wall. It's gone. Ball, and he wasn't about to pull it. He just went with the curve and hit it into the right field seat. And the National League has badly demoralized the American League, I'm sure, 4-0. And the batter is Ron Cey. Home runs by Morgan. Foster doubled home Parker, who had singled, and Luzinski just puts the slug on Palmer to make it 4-0. Ron Cey, who, like teammate Steve Garvey, has been in quite a slump, checks in at the plate, and the fastball jumps over for a strike. 0-1.
Then out in the bullpen, Jeff Torborg, the new Cleveland manager now, is up next to Jim Kern, and Kern is throwing like he means business. They have probably talked in the dugout, and Kern obviously feels he'll be coming in.
The next pitch is fouled back to the second deck behind the plate, and the count 0-2. Palmer is not very fast, and both home run balls came on 3-2 pitches, and he is usually a good control artist. But a 3-2 pitch to Morgan and a 3-2 pitch to Luzinski deposited in the lower deck in right field. Now the strike 2 pitch to Cey. Fastball, bad swing, and down he goes. And so it points up the Dodgers' frustration. The only 2 outs in the first inning are strikeouts by Steve Garvey and Ron Cey. And now in his 10th consecutive All-Star game, Cincinnati catcher Johnny Bench. Bench comes in with less impressive credentials than normal, hitting .268. However, he still has the slug, 20 home runs, 68 runs batted in. Slow change, and it's in there for a strike. Good pitch by Palmer. 0-1 the count. Johnny Bench, the 7th man to come to the plate here in the first inning, and the National League leading 4-0. Off-speed pitch, and Bench way out in front of it. 0-2.
Been the last time Jim Palmer pitched in Yankee Stadium, he got into an argument on the mound with his manager, Earl Weaver, who wanted him to throw harder.
Next one is swung out and missed, strike 3. Well, I can remember Don Newcomb telling Jackie Robinson, "Why do you want me to throw harder when I can't throw harder?" That's Jim Palmer tonight. He strikes out the side and gives up 4 runs, 4 hits. Nobody left. The end of half an inning. The National League 4, the American League coming up.
So we are back in Yankee Stadium, where they have replayed the carnage out there on the videotape scoreboard in center field, with the National League exploding for 4 runs. And let me remind you that this broadcast is authorized under broadcasting rights granted by Major League Baseball solely for the entertainment of our listening audience. Any publication, rebroadcast, or other use of the descriptions and accounts of this game without the express written consent of the Commissioner of Baseball is prohibited. So we come to the bottom of the first inning, and it will be Rod Carew of the Minnesota Twins who will be coming to the plate and leading off.
Rod Carew leading off, followed by Willie Randolph, and then George Brett. Don Sutton with an infield of Steve Garvey and Joe Morgan, Davey Concepcion and Ron Fay back of him. Sutton's first pitch, fastball, picked up the outside corner for a strike. In the outfield, Greg Luzinski is in left. George Foster is in center, and Dave Parker around in right. Rod Carew, left-hand batter waiting. Sutton's next one, breaking ball inside, and the count 1-1. Sutton said, "One thing I'm not going to let Carew do tonight, and that's eat me up." The last time he pitched to Carew, twice Carew slammed the ball off Sutton's body. The next one is a bouncer speared by Sutton. Well, he didn't hit him, but he got it close, and Sutton throws him out. 1 away. Willie Randolph, the pride of the Yankees, coming up out of the Pirate organization. For Randolph, a big thrill. One of the quiet guys, born in Brooklyn, at least makes his home there now. So Randolph with Brett on deck. It is 4-0 National League in the first inning, in case you joined us late. Home runs by Morgan and Luzinski, along with a double by Foster after a single by Parker, netting the National League 4. Randolph takes outside, ball 1. Sutton basically fastball, breaking ball, and a change, which he has improved upon considerably over the last couple of years. The next one, fastball on the inside corner for a strike, 1-1. Don has improved on his change. He learned it from Andy Messersmith that brief time that the great right-hander was with the Dodgers, and it's really paid off. The 1-1 pitch on the way. Breaking ball fouled away off to the right. That carries upstairs, and the count 1-2. Bob Lemon and the Candy Kid, Alex Bramis, over at third. 1 down, bottom of the first. National League 4, American League 0. Sutton, both feet on the rubber, looks down to get a sign from Johnny Bench. Now Don into the windup, and the 1-2 pitch on the way. Fastball got him looking. Letter high inside part of the plate. So Sutton, who is not a particular overwhelming strikeout man, but he can sure set you up, and he shows the crowd just how. So with 2 down, George Brett coming up. I think his manager summed it up best, saying he could hit snowballs on Christmas Day. Brett, a fine young hitter, left-hand batter, deep in the box. Sutton ready, and sails a little slider inside, ball 1, 1-0. 2 down, first inning, National League 4, American League 0. Brett had an infected elbow. It's still heavily padded. He checks his swing on a breaking ball low, 2-0. George with 215 hits last year, and he started the All-Star game in '76. The 2-0 pitch on the way. Sutton deals and missed, ball 3, 3-0. Sutton admitted before the ball game he was nervous, but of course it means a great deal to him to come to Yankee Stadium. Brett had mentioned earlier about it was a boyhood dream to pitch here. The 3-0 pitch is low, ball 4. So with 2 down, a walk to Brett, and here comes Yaz. Carl Yastrzemski, who was the most valuable player in the All-Star game back in 1970. Yastrzemski, sensational ball player. Raised around these parts. In fact, when he was signed off the campus at Notre Dame, he was a shortstop, playing center field tonight, and he promptly pulled 1 foul down the right field line in the lower deck in the count 0-1. That was a typical Sutton pitch that got away. He really didn't want to come into him like that, but he did. When Don first came to the Dodgers, and for quite a few years, His problem was the home run ball, the long fly ball. But maturity, knowledge of the hitters, he has cut it down considerably. But he's up there against a guy who can eat you up. Sutton ready, Don delivers. Off speed, high and outside. 1-1. Johnny Bench in a crouch behind the plate, wig-wagging a couple of signs out. On deck, right-hand hitting left fielder Richie Zisk. 1-1 pitch on the way, very high and outside. Ball 2, 2-1.
Then in the bottom of the first, Jim Kern did not throw at all in the American League bullpen, so perhaps they're going to try Jim Palmer one more inning, or maybe even Kern is ready on this warm evening in Yankee Stadium.
All right, we'll keep an eye on Palmer, who oddly enough struck out the side in the first inning, but sure paid a price for it. He has, with the count, 2 balls and 1 strike. Sutton at the belt, back he comes, and missed again. Ball 3, 3-1. Richie Zisk, of course, who played in the National League, so Sutton knows very well he can get badly hurt. Walks Brett with 2 down, and he's fallen behind Yastrzemski 3-1. And I'm sure the American League have these fellas hitting if he likes the pitch. 3-1 pitch is popped up on the right side. Little Joe says he'll handle it. Morgan waiting for it to come down out of the night and puts it away. So Yastrzemski pops up the 3-1 pitch. The American League, no runs, no hits, a man left. And at the end of an inning, National League 4, American League nothing.
Jim Palmer returns to start the second inning for Billy Martin's American League All-Stars. And as Vince Kelly pointed out, he struck out the side, and he indeed paid a heavy price in the first inning, surrendering those 4 runs, 2 of them on home runs by Morgan and Luzinski, both of them to right field. For Billy Martin, the dilemma is pretty obvious. Outside of his starter, Palmer, he has Blue, LaRoche, and Lyle, and Blue doesn't figure to play. And right-handers Campbell, Kern, and Slayton. And, of course, he can't spend his money too soon. The National League, they have injuries, but Gossett substituted for Suter. Candelaria has a bad back. He will not pitch. Steve Carlton is here. He has a bad back. He will not pitch. Joaquin Andujar from Houston is here. He will not pitch. But the National League still has more pitchers available, with Gary Lavelle along with Gossett, Russell, and Seaver. Maybe they'll need Don Newcomb before this is over.
Well, we'll see now as Davey Concepcion starts it off, and the Cincinnati shortstop takes high, ball 1, 1-0. For Palmer, among other things, lack of control hurt him. He had to go 3-2, and he served up home run balls on each occasion. The 1-0 pitch, Concepcion fouls it away, upstairs off to the right, the count 1-1. Davey wears a golf glove, or batting glove, as they call them, on each hand. Roy Campanella was saying, boy, I wish we had him in my day. Concepcion said, it's gotten so now I can't play without him. Here's the 1-1 pitch on the way, and Davey pulls his knees out of the way of a fastball, ball 2. 2-1. Bill Kunkel, the plate umpire, who pitched here for the Yankees in '63, has a lot of memories. But the biggest memory about Yankee Stadium has nothing to do with pitching. Off speed to Concepcion is low, ball 3. Kunkel was in the bullpen when a knockdown fight broke out, and twice he came from the bullpen to the mound, but there was no fight. So when the breakout occurred for the 3rd time in the same game, he locked the bullpen gate and then tried to jump over it. 8 stitches in his leg, never saw combat. The pitch to Concepcion outside, ball 4. So for Bill Kunkel, nice to be back, and he's got the scar to prove it. He's the plate umpire. Doug Harvey, in his 4th All-Star game at first. Phillips and Stello working out the infield with Brinkman and Pooley on the line. And here's Don Sutton, a fair hitting pitcher. In fact, he is not as good a hitting pitcher now as he was when he first came up. Of course, in the National League, without the designated hitter, the pitchers come up there. He bunts up along first, Carew down to field it, tags him out, and on the sacrifice, Concepcion takes second. So the National League leading 4-0. And they stay out of the double play. They have Sutton sacrifice and the batter, Joe Morgan.
And then that walk brought Jim Kern to his feet again in the American League bullpen. Out in left center field, he is up and throwing.
As we were saying, it is not so much a case of wildness where a pitcher is throwing a lot of walks, but Palmer is not hitting the corners the way he wishes, and twice on those 3-2 counts, the ball was hit out. Here's Morgan, who greeted him with a 3-2 home run, leading off the ball game. Palmer, a high set, looks at second, slows up, and gets it over for a strike, 0-1. the Joe Morgan trademark. Left-hand batter, and he beats a steady tattoo on the left side of his rib cage with his elbow. It's just one of those mannerisms. The best imitation of Joe Morgan is done by Pete Rose's little boy. The strike one pitch is low, 1-1. 310 down the line, falling away to 353, to 385, to 417 in straightaway center. Then in left center, 430, 387, and 312. That's the dimensions of Yankee Stadium. Palmer looks back at Concepcion, backs off the rubber, and Davey gets back to the bag. Concepcion, during the course of a regular season, is a base-stealing threat. He's stolen 21 out of 26. Burleson trying to bird dog him. There he goes. Off-speed pitch outside. Throw down to get him. So Concepcion trying to steal third, and he's hung out to dry easily from Carlton Fisk to George Brett. So they've been reading his numbers as well.
You know, Ben, it looks to me like the National League would not only like to win, but perhaps embarrass the American League. Concepcion running from second to third with a left-handed hitter and a 4-run lead.
And how? The 2-1 pitch to Morgan. Line drive at Willie Randolph. So Morgan stings it at his opposite number, and the National League walks away empty-handed. Nobody aboard, and at the end of an inning and a half, the National League 4, the American League nothing.
Then Richie Zisk is going to lead off for the American League. Of all the starters for either of the All-Star teams, he will become the only free agent at the conclusion of this season if he elects not to sign his contract. It's interesting, he is so very happy in Chicago, and the fans there love him. They have a big Polish population, as you know, in Chicago, and the White Sox have been on fire. With Richie, he says it's simply a matter of money, and he's hoping that he and Bill Veeck can get together.
Well, I'm sure the American League could use that popularity, and Richie, with a .297 average for the Chicago White Sox, was an acknowledged fine hitter when he was in the National League. In fact, in 1974, he had an RBI in 10 consecutive games, just one shy of the National League record held by Mel Ott. Zisk takes a strike in the count 0-1. The outfield for the National League pretty well fanned out. Richie waiting at the plate. Sutton with a 4-0 cushion. Into the windup, and Don delivers and gets it in for a strike. 0-2 the count to Zisk. He'll be followed by Reggie Jackson and then Carlton Fisk, and a very restless Billy Martin pacing up and down, and I think he's on Bill Kunkel a little bit. 0-2 the count. Sutton ready, delivers, check swing, a breaking ball outside. Harvey, the first base umpire, said he couldn't hold up, and he strikes out. So Kunkel checking with Harvey, and Harvey says gone, and some of the American leaguers, look like Willie Randolph off the bench, still look out at Harvey. So that would be the second strikeout for Don Sutton, and the batter, Reggie Jackson.
And Billy Martin now with a bit of a verbal blast down at Harvey of the National League umpiring crew. He was the plate umpire who had to retire for 12 innings Saturday in the terrible heat over in Philadelphia.
Reggie Jackson always stirs him up. He looks at a strike, and the count 0-1. The American League umpire Bill Kunkel feeling a little heat right now from the American League dugout. The strike one pitch to Reggie. Sutton deals, breaking ball low, and the count 1-1.
Ben, I wouldn't be surprised if the Yankees don't use Reggie Jackson the second half of the season as a designated hitter. He has had problem after problem in the outfield.
Well, Reggie, of course, has had any problems tonight except to go to the wall and watch. He takes a look at a pitch low, ball 2-1. But, of course, that is a haven for anyone who can swing the bat as well as he does, such a thing as a designated hitter. Sutton reading signs, bench sets the target. The 2-1 pitch on the way, fastball, but he missed low and outside, ball 3. Don being a little too fine. He's on the plate, but he's trying to hit the edges. They walked Brett, but got Yastrzemski, you remember, on a 3-1 pitch. Now he strikes out Zisk, and he goes 3-1 to Jackson. And again, it should be the rule tonight. You figure these fellas are hitting if they like the pitch. Breaking ball over, 3-2. So Sutton all the way with Jackson. Carlton Fisk on deck. Reggie waiting, and the 3-2 pitch coming up. Sutton deals, a big bouncer over the mound, over second, into center field, base hit. George Foster up with the ball, Jackson holding at first, and the American League on the scoreboard as far as the hit column is concerned. And now here comes catcher Carlton Fisk.
Ben, I'm sure the audience can hear the boos in the background. Fisk, not the most popular of players to visit Yankee Stadium. He was involved in a brawl between the Red Sox and the New York Yankees last season, and there's a tremendous rivalry that goes on year after year between those two American League teams, and many of the fans here felt that Thurman Munson should have started. Both tremendous catchers.
Fisk, by the way, has had injuries. He had a knee injury in 74. He broke his arm in 75. He's quite a competitor. Carlton swings, fouls it away, 0-1. And, of course, I guess no one will forget the drama, the electric lightning bolt that hit the baseball world when Carlton Fisk hit that 12th inning home run in the 6th game of the 1975 World Series. So the right-hand hitting catcher up there with a chance to hurt. Reggie Jackson at first. The National League, they do not look for Jackson to do any running. Garvey is back of him, and the pitch of the plate is low, dug out by Bench, and he just looked Jackson back to the bag. Lasorda trying to get George Foster's eye in center field. Foster playing Carlton Fisk straight away, and Lasorda saying, no, move over to left center some more. And George has finally spotted the towel now and moves over. Sutton out of the stretch, a backward glance at Jackson. It's 4-0 National League. And the pitch to Carlton Fisk is high. Ball 2. Sutton, remember, gave up the hit on the 3-2 pitch, and he's behind now to Fisk. Rick Burleson on deck. Sutton, another look over at Jackson, now comes back to his hitter and picks up the inside corner for a strike. So that evens it up 2-2. If he's joined us late in the first inning, Joe Morgan homered. With one out, Parker singled, and Foster doubled him home. And then Greg Luzinski homered to give the National League a 4-0 lead. Sutton ready in the 2-2 pitch. In there, strike 3 called. The third strikeout for Don Sutton. And, of course, the Yankee fans booing Fisk as he goes back to the American League dugout. And the batter now, the talented Boston shortstop, Rick Burleson. Burleson hitting .298. Does not bring very much stock up to the plate. He has 2 and 28 RBIs. 4-0 National League, bottom of the second. The National League has won 28 of 46 meetings. There was also a tie. The pitch of the plate high, ball 1. The National League has also won 5 straight. 13 of the last 14. Of course, it was not always so. The National League won its first game in 1936 when the series was 3 years old. There's a drive to center. Foster, a late start. Still going back, has to backhand it on the run. George had a little trouble picking it up against the shirt sleeve crowd. Had this been a day game in the fall, he'd have more than a little trouble. But he made his play. No runs ahead, a man left. And at the end of 2, the National League 4, the American League nothing. Another moment we were thinking about this ball game in baseball, saluting Jackie Robinson. 1949 in All-Star history, the game was played at Ebbets Field. That was the first in which blacks participated. Larry Doby for the American League, Jackie Robinson, Roy Campanella, and Don Newcomb for the National League. The game, among other things, Newcomb barely missed a grand slam home run, but that was the beginning of it. For the National League, although they have been dominating of late, it should also be pointed out in all fairness that it wasn't until 1964, 31 years after it started, that the National League finally evened the series. So it's been the last 15 years or 13 years where the National League has made the biggest strides, but don't get the idea that it has been that way all the time. Steve Garvey, who struck out in the first inning, checks in for his second time around, 4-0 National in the third. Garvey, a very deliberate hitter, backed out. He wasn't quite ready. Now he is, and Palmer over the top, and the fastball a little high, ball 1, 1-0. Jim Palmer and his battery mate Carlton Fisk. Palmer into the windup. Now the 1-0 pitch on the way, swung on and missed, 1-1. Rod Carew and Willie Randolph, Rick Burleson and George Brett, Richie Zisk, Carl Yastrzemski, and Reggie Jackson in the outfield. And it's hard to believe, or hard to even think, that that club could ever be considered out of a game. Garvey fouls it away, off to the right, carries upstairs, and the count 1-2. Jim Palmer, shaken in the first inning for 4, despite the fact that he struck out the side. In the second inning, a rather pointed play, Davey Concepcion trying to steal third with Morgan at the plate, and they nailed him. The 1-2 pitch is hammered down the left field line. Foul, says Frank Foley. And the count remains 1-2. Garvey, in 1974, was a write-in candidate, you might remember, and was voted the most valuable player of the game. Now, that's a 1 in a million. Talking about millions, the vote for the All-Star teams this year, astronomical. 12.5 million votes were cast. The pitch to Garvey, low ball 2. Garvey, one of 2 men to get over 4 million votes for the first time in history. The other, and rightly so, Rod Carew. Boy, first place is a high-priced neighborhood in this park. The 2-2 pitch to Garvey is belted, but deep to left center field. Richie's hit, the ball over his head and gone. Deep in the bullpen.
Then Billy Martin coming out. He has Jim Kern and Dennis Eckersley of the Cleveland Indians out in the bullpen. That's the third home run that Jim Palmer has surrendered so far in this All-Star game, and no doubt Billy Martin has decided that it is time for a change.
One thing about Jim Palmer, and it should be pointed out, that Palmer pays the bill. He came into the All-Star game having allowed 20 home runs. And so here in the ballpark tonight, he is touched up for 3, but Morgan and Lazinski were hit well to right. Garvey's was hit out of sight, deep into the bullpen, a good 420 feet away.
Here comes Kern, and as he does, let us pause for a brief update from CBS News in New York. We are awaiting Jim Kern, who will throw his warm-up. He has replaced Jim Palmer as the pitcher for the American League with the score of 5-0 here in the third inning. The National League ahead on the strength of 3 home runs. Jim Kern of the Indians then has appeared in 39 Cleveland games the first half of the season, won 3, lost 6, 2.97 earned run average.
He is the kind of man you like to bring into a ball game in relief. He has a very good fastball, a curveball, and a sinker. And above all, he has the ideal mental attitude. He likes to come at the hitter. He likes to challenge him. And, of course, that's just the kind of a man you want to bail yourself out. He's only 27. In fact, he was 28 in March out of Gladwin, Michigan. And when he's out there, you know he's out there. He is 6'5" and 205 pounds. But this is a painful move for Billy Martin. He did not want to have to commit himself in the middle of an inning. He was hoping that Palmer could make it through the third inning and then bat for him and start an inning with Kern in the fourth, because, as we mentioned, he does not have quite a full deck with so many injuries. But the home run by Garvey, and that was really blistered because it wound up in the bullpen about 420 feet away at least, and that was enough for Jim Palmer. So Palmer went 2 innings plus, allowed 5 runs and 5 hits. He struck out 3 and walked 1. And although the players like to think of it as an exhibition game, as we mentioned, once it begins, the professional pride that got them to the big leagues in the first place is on the line. And I can guarantee you it was not a walk in the park for Jim Palmer. Oh, sure, it doesn't mean anything, except you were out there naked unto the world, and they ripped you.
As you pointed out, Ben, Kern's appearance in this 48th All-Star game could indeed be a brief one. 3 hitters, and meanwhile his teammate Dennis Eckersley begins loosening up out there in the bullpen again. There are so many different uniform combinations that sometimes the players themselves get confused. Jim Kern, for example, is wearing the red top with the white pants. His teammate, Dennis Eckersley, wasn't so sure what the uniform of the day should be, so he's wearing the black top and the white pants.
In fact, the All-Star players today receive notice that if you are, quote, the visiting team in that particular year, then you ought to bring the visiting uniform. It points up in 1963, the American League was the home team, but everybody wore traveling gray because they were playing really on the road. Carl Yastrzemski showed up in his Boston Red Sox white and stood out like a, well, not a sore thumb. Yaz would never be a sore thumb. Okay, Jim Kern pitching to Dave Parker of the Pirates. 5-0 National League, and Kern sends one all the way to the backstop. Ball 1. How do you do?
The Yankee Stadium crowd applauds, no doubt thinking about that famous relief pitcher by the name of Ryan Duran, who always started out that way.
You know, the first time Don Sutton ever appeared in a All-Star game, and it could be Kern, same problem. His first 2 warm-up tosses hit the backstop. Here's a 1-0 pitch on the way. Parker fouls it away, and the count 1-1. Dave Parker showed, A, that he's a good hitter. He got an inside pitch, and he hit it inside out into left field. Then he showed that despite the fact he is so big, he can really move. He scored on a double by Foster, and a good slide beat Fisk's attempted tag. He takes high ball 2. 2-1 the count to Dave Parker. Jim Kern making a somewhat early start. Right-hander without a windup, and the 2-1 pitch is sprayed foul off third in the lower deck, and the count 2-2. Kern 10-7 with Cleveland last year. He's been pitching professionally since 1968. Last year he struck out 111 in 118 innings, so you know he really comes at you. 2-2 to Parker. Kern ready. Jim's 2-2 fastball is grounded foul outside of third and down the line. Parker very late on it. 2-2. George Foster on deck. So the National League with 4 in the first and 1 in the third. And I see that fat cat outside that sandwich shop we talked about before the game. It's getting fatter. 2-2 the count to Parker. Kern ready. Here he comes. Fastball got him swinging. Down around the knees. Borderline pitch. Parker tried to golf it, and he came up empty. So 1 away, and the batter, George Foster. George Foster doubled up the alley in left center in the first inning to drive in Parker, and then he rode home on Luzinski's home run. George at the plate. The outfield very deep, and they play him to pull Reggie Jackson over towards right center. Kern ready, and the right-hander deals, gets it in for a strike. 0-1. Third inning, National League 5 runs, 5 hits. They've had 3 home runs. Morgan and Garvey with the bases empty. Luzinski with Foster aboard. Now the strike 1 pitch on the way. Kern deals up around the eyes. 1-1. We were talking before about some of the milestones in All-Star history. Boy, there have been moments that baseball fans chew on for years. The 1-1 pitch swung on and missed, 1-2. We wrote some of them down. 1934, how about Carl Hubbell? That momentous occasion at the Polo Grounds when he struck out Ruth, Gehrig, Fox, Simmons, Cronin. Had 2 strikes on Dickey, and then Dickey got a single. And then he struck out Lefty Gomez. Here's the 1-2 pitch on the way. Foster swings and misses, strike 3. So Jim Kern has come in to challenge and restore some order as he strikes out Parker and Foster. And now the Bull, as they call him, Greg Luzinski, coming up. Luzinski has done a wonderful thing in Philadelphia. He got some money and purchased a bunch of seats at Veterans Stadium for youngsters, and they are Luzinski's guests at every game at home. It is called the Bull Ring. The pitch to Greg inside. Ball 1, 1-0. We mentioned in 1943 the first All-Star night game was played. In 1945 the game was canceled. Wartime travel restrictions. Here's the 1-0 pitch on the way to Luzinski. Sprayed foul off the lip of the American League dugout that almost wiped out half the league. And the ball carrying back out onto the field. And did that shake him up? Morgan's home run, Garvey's home run. They didn't shake him up. That foul ball by Luzinski aids that club in a hurry. 1-1. Greg waiting. Kern looks down the barrel to get a sign from Carlton Fisk. Now Jim ready in the 1-1 pitch on the way. Fastball, a broken bat, and a ground ball to Willie Randolph. A lot of English on it. He flips over to Carew, and Kern sets him down in order after Garvey's home run. 1 run, 1 hit. And at the end of 2.5 innings, the National League 5, the American League, nothing. An example right now of how the designated hitter rule alters managing in the American League. Rupert Jones will be the pinch hitter for Billy Martin then. Kern, the scheduled hitter, but the American League behind by 5 runs. And for Kern and Martin, a shame, because he was really bringing the baseball, as he did indeed restore some order. So his teammate Dennis Eckersley will have to come out and pitch in the 4th inning. And Don Sutton is out there, ready to go to work with his 3rd and final inning for the National League. It shows you just how tough it is to be a manager and have your hand forced under these circumstances. Each manager somewhat shorter than usual as far as playing talent, and Martin did not get his wish. Had Farmer been able to go through the third inning without a run, he then could have batted for him, brought in Kern for 3 innings, and he just doesn't have the pitches to burn up. But his hand was forced when Garvey hit it out of sight, and now here's Rupert Jones batting for Kern. That's a tough break for Billy Martin. Dennis Eckersley heating up, as Brett pointed out, 5-0 National League in the third inning. Jonesy, left-hand batter, takes high. Ball 1, 1-0. Hitting .256 with Seattle, 17 home runs, 50 runs batted in. Sutton reading Johnny Bench. No changes yet. Don Ruddy delivers, and there's a high fly ball into right center field. It's playable. Parker and Foster. Parker, the taller of the two, just reaches up ahead of George to play it. So Dave Parker takes that fly ball from George Foster, 1 away. Rod Carew coming up. Carew hit back to the box in the first inning. Rupert Jones used as a pinch hitter. The luxury that Martin has, he came into this game with 6 left-handed pinch hitters and 2 switch hitters. Rod Carew hits a high fly ball to center and deep. Back goes Foster, away back to the wall, leaps up and makes the catch. George Foster going 417 feet to dead center, banging up against the boards to taking possibly a home run, probably an extra base hit from Rod Carew. And to be honest, I didn't think Carew could hit the ball that far to dead center.
Surprised me the way it carried out there, Ben, and when Foster pulled it down, his glove was above the fence just as he hit that padded wall there.
The great catch by Foster, 2 down in the third, and Willie Randolph takes inside ball 1, 1-0. So Carew hits it a long way, and Foster goes back to get it. 2 down. Sutton into the windup, and the 1-0 pitch on the way. Sails in there nicely for a strike, 1-1. Brett, that's one of those long fly balls that I told you Sutton will throw upon occasion. He can throw some deep ones, but it hasn't hurt him at all.
That's why he dislikes Wrigley Field in Chicago so much. They're home runs there.
The 1-1 pitch, swung on and missed, 1-2. Willie Randolph, the batter, 2 down in the third, 5 runs, 5 hits for the National League, including 3 home runs and a double. No runs and 1 hit for the American League. Now the 1-2 pitch on the way. Sut deals, half swing, in the dirt, but it's going to be strike 3, and then Bench puts the tag on him, and down goes the American League, and that would be the 4th strikeout for Don Sutton. And Sutton makes a little fist, that's his favorite sign. He is thoroughly delighted with himself and what has taken place. At the end of 3, National League 5, American League nothing.
I refuse to think about safety. Not wild horses.
Dennis Eckersley on the mound now for the American League. He has replaced his teammate Jim Kern, and he is the 3rd pitcher. Used already by Billy Martin. Came into the game with 7, as Vince Scully pointed out, and we are only in the 4th inning. Dennis Eckersley 9-7. One of those victories, a no-hitter.
Dennis Eckersley has a great fastball. He has struck out as many as 14 in a game. In fact, last year, in an amazing string, he struck out 127 batters in his final 106 innings. So he ended up the year last year averaging 9 strikeouts for 9 innings. He was second in baseball only to California's Nolan Ryan. Last year, he became only the 8th pitcher since 1900 to fan 200 or more batters in a season before the age of 22. And with his 200 Ks, why, he wrote his book in Cleveland record books. He joined such illustrious company as Sam McDowell, Bob Feller, Gaylord Perry, Herb Score, and Louis Tian. So Dennis Eckersley from Oakland, California, he's 6'2", 190, and he'll be pitching to Ron Cey, followed by Johnny Bench and then Davey Concepcion. Sutton, I'm sure, is finished for the night.
Indeed. I was just going to point out that Gary Lavelle of the San Francisco Giants, the left-hander, is out warming up. Sparky Anderson said at the news conference yesterday that he felt that he would come with the left-hander second. simply because Billy Martin had all of those left-handed hitters. So it appears as though Lavelle will be the second pitcher used by Sparky.
And you can pretty sure bet that Tom Seaver will be the third pitcher, and if there is 1 minute left over, then Rich Gossett. That is basically Sparky's thinking before the ballgame. And Sparky knows drama when he sees it. He is not about to let the National League come through New York without Seaver pitching. You can bet. Ron Cey swings at a sidearm fastball and fouls it back, 0-1. Eckersley comes by way of third, and Roy Campanella, who was here once, described hitting against a sidearm right-hander, and he said he gives you that jelly leg, and that's what happens to that left leg if you're right-handed. It's tough to stay in there. Sidearmer full foul outside of third, off the box seats, and caroms into left field. So Frank Pulley of the National League will run it down. 5-0 National. We're in the fourth inning. Joe Morgan hit a 3-2 pitch for a home run. With 1 out, Parker singled. Foster doubled him home. Lazinski hit a 3-2 pitch for a home run. And for good measure in the third inning, Garvey led off with a home run. So it has been all National League so far, but there are a lot of high-priced players out there for the American League yet to be heard from. The strike 2 pitch to Ron Cey. Sidearmer tapped up the middle. Randolph to his right is up with the ball and throws him out. One away in the fourth, and Johnny Bench coming up. Bench struck out in the first inning. That was when Jim Palmer fired his one salvo, striking out Garvey, Cey, and Bench. John waiting at the plate. Had this game been played, in St. Louis or Los Angeles, you might have the same reaction as New York fans are giving Carlton Fisk. The ball is popped up, and George Brett, the third baseman, will make the play, waiting, and one hands it for the out. Because in other cities, they feel, for instance, that Ted Simmons had better credentials than Bench, and in Los Angeles, there are those who feel that Steve Yeager this year had better credentials than Bench, but that John won because he's always there and always will be. At least that's the reaction.
Well, last year, that was indeed the situation at Philadelphia. They were pulling for Boone, who was on the team, and they felt he should have been the starter all along.
Well, it's great to have the allegiance anyway. Davey Concepcion, the batter, he walked in the second inning. Eckersley sidearm fastball swung on and missed, 0-1. Concepcion was sacrificed to second. Joe Morgan came up, and Davey tried to steal third, and Fisk hammed him out easily to George Brett. The strike 1 pitch on the way. Sidearmer low in the dirt, backhanded by Fisk in the count, 1-1. No changes in the starting lineup, exception at the mound for the American League. Carew and Randolph, Burleson and Brett, with Zisk in left, Yastrzemski in center, Jackson in right. The pitch to Davey is taken for a strike. Bill Kunkel behind the plate. Danny Ozark of the Phillies coaching at first. Tommy Lasorda coaching at third. Of course, Lasorda was the third base coach under Alston. It's been years since Ozark has done it, so he's over at first. The comebacker to Eckersley, and that'll do it for Concepcion. So 2 men from Cleveland come into a score order in New York. Kern and Eckersley, they retire 6 in a row after Garvey's home run in the third. However, at the end of 3 1/2, the National League 5, the American League nothing.
Gary Lavelle now coming in. He will be the second pitcher used by National League manager Sparky Anderson. And Anderson also has taken the opportunity to insert a new catcher. Ted Simmons of the St. Louis Cardinals will be behind the plate. And out in left field, it will be Dave Winfield. And then taking a look at the batting order, the pitcher was due up first next inning, so it gives Anderson the opportunity to put Winfield down there perhaps, or Simmons is the leadoff man. Simmons, of course, leading the National League in hitting right now at the All-Star break, and perhaps save Lavelle. We'll wait and see. The signal from the umpire, he's over talking to Billy Martin right now.
For the National League, Ted Simmons behind the plate. And I say this only after talking to a lot of people. Ted Simmons, the switch-hitting catcher of the St. Louis Cardinals, despite all of the numbers, might very well be thought of as the best hitter in the National League without a doubt. He is a remarkable ball player. Not only is he a switch hitter, he is ambidextrous to the extent I've seen him work out at first base as a left-handed fielding first baseman. And Simmons throws the ball as if he were left-handed. He's a gang behind the plate. On the mound is a fellow who really throws the ball left-handed, Gary Lavelle. As far as the Giants are concerned, if they need somebody to come in and strike out a hitter, they'll go to this fella. He is that kind of a hard-throwing left-hander. And while he tunes up, let's pause 5 seconds for station identification. This is the CBS Radio Network. We're getting those changes now. In case you are keeping score with us, Ted Simmons will bat 9th. Gary Lavelle will go in the number 7 slot in Johnny Bench's spot, and Dave Winfield will go in the spot occupied by Greg Luzinski. And George Brett takes outside, ball 1, 1-0. Lavelle wears glasses, back with a turnover, and there's a high fly ball to left center field, but it's playable. Big Dave Winfield is there to make the catch for the out. One away, and center fielder Carl Yastrzemski. And if you ever had to immediately realize the problems of the American League, watching Carl Yastrzemski run after George Foster's double in the first inning, you knew the American League was hurting figuratively and literally because he's playing on a bad foot and playing the toughest position of all. Sidearm curve missed, ball 1, 1-0 Diaz. Gary Lavelle, left-hander with the San Francisco Giants. The 1-0 pitch, sidearmer in there for a strike. He leaned a little bit by way of first base. Lavelle has been in 44 games. He has a 6-4 record, but what is more important, he struck out 61 in 70 innings. Fastball swung on and missed 1 and 2. He is a spot man. He is very tough for 2 or 3 innings, so this is an ideal ball game for him. The 1-2 pitch on the way. Fastball got him swinging. High inside fastball. Yes, tried to uppercut it, and down he goes. 5 strikeouts now charged against the American League. Don Sutton in 3 innings allowed 1 hit, 1 walk, struck out 4, did not allow a man to get to second base. However, he was bailed out on the defensive play of the night in the 3rd inning on a leaping catch by George Foster. Fastball runs away from Richie Zisk of Chicago. 1 ball and no strikes. Richie, 19 home runs, 63 RBIs, and Lavelle comes back to him, and there's a line drive right by Lavelle's glove, whistling out into center field. That'll be the 2nd hit for the American League, and it'll bring up Reggie Jackson, and that shakes him up. The American League won an all-star game within Detroit's Tiger Stadium, and Reggie Jackson hit that mammoth home run that would have gone completely out of Tiger Stadium, except it hit that light standard above right field. And what the American League could use right now is something explosive. Reggie holds up on a pitch high and inside, ball 1, 1-0. They need something to get well in a hurry. We should also point out Lavelle has not allowed a home run this year. The 1-0 pitch on the way, breaking ball in the dirt, short hop by Simmons, ball 2. The National League 5, the American League nothing. We're in the bottom of the 4th inning. It has been a National League show, and the American League kind of shake itself and get off the deck. Jackson swings and doesn't get it, and it counts 2-1. The National League afield with Garvey and Morgan, Concepcion and Say. The infield is intact. Big Dave Winfield is in left, George Foster in center, Dave Parker in right. The 2-1 pitch is swung on and missed 2-2. Boy, what a set of bookends. If you're the center fielder and you look to the right and see Winfield and you look to the left and see Parker, it's your ball game, baby. They're each 6. Here's the 2-2 pitch on the way. Just outside, little slider. He tried to chip off the corner. Ball 3. If all 3 converge on a fly ball, George Foster may run completely out of the park to stay away from those 2. Here's a 3-2 pitch. Fastball got him swinging. Well, Lavelle strikes out Reggie Jackson. He picks up 2 Ks. A half a dozen American Leaguers have struck out. And at the end of 4, the National League 5, the American League nothing. National League leading the American League 5-0. We move to the top of the 5th inning, and then a couple of changes in the outfield for Billy Martin. Fred Lynn replaces Carl Yastrzemski in center field, and Jim Rice sends Reggie Jackson to the bench. Both Lynn and Rice, of course, members of the Boston Red Sox. Dennis Eckersley still on the mound. So right now, Billy Martin has a lineup on the field, which includes 4 members of the Red Sox. Rice, Lynn, with Burleson at shortstop, and Carlton Fisk behind the plate. It reminds me, this is the third All-Star game played here at Yankee Stadium. In 1939, Joe McCarthy of the Yankees took a lot of heat because he used 6 Yankees in the game. And they beat the National League 3-1. Joe DiMaggio hit his only home run in All-Star history in that game. Well, in 1943, Marsh Joe McCarthy again managed the American League and again had a half a dozen Yankees on the team, so he didn't play any of them and beat the National League. So he kind of answered his critics. So Billy Martin certainly can't be accused of favoritism now as the ballgame takes somewhat of a Boston tinge. And Ted Simmons, followed by Joe Morgan and Steve Garvey. As we move to the 5th inning, National 5, American nothing. Dennis Eckersley retired the side in order in the 4th. Rocks without a windup, and the right-handed deals, and Simmons a one-hopper to Willie Randolph, and that'll take care of the Cardinal catcher. One away. So as far as Cleveland is concerned, they have certainly held up to their part of the bargain. Kern came in and struck out 2 of the 3 men he faced. Eckersley has retired 4 in a row, so 7 retired by Cleveland pitching, Kern and Eckersley. Now here's Joe Morgan. It was Morgan opening salvo home run that was the beginning of the end for Jim Palmer. Then last time up, he lined out to Randolph. Eckersley ready and deals, and the fastball to strike. 0-1. The second All-Star game to ever be played here at Yankee Stadium was in 1960. The National League won that game 6-0. Willie Mays had 3 hits in that game, one of them a home run. Morgan tries to pull a sinker and hits it foul on the ground just beyond the American League dugout. 0-2 to little Joe Morgan. Steve Garvey on deck. The American League came into this game even short in a luxurious department known as switch hitters. Billy has only 2 switch hitters, Ken Singleton and Butch Weiniger. The pitch to Joe Morgan inside. While Sparky Anderson came in with Simmons, Rose, Templeton, and Smith. 4 switch hitters available. 1-2 to count to Joe Morgan. Just the start of the 5th inning. 5-0 National League. Eckersley deals, and there's a fly ball into right center field and deep. Fred Lynn is dinging on the track to the wall. Makes a great catch. Marvelous play by Freddie Lynn, who has been bothered by an injury that he suffered in spring training. On the move, going toward right field, just flicked up that right hand, and after pulling it down, he went crashing into the padded wall. And, of course, the immediate thought is Yastrzemski would not have had it. He could not have covered that much ground on that bad leg. So Freddie Lynn makes a marvelous defensive play. George Foster made the other one. The scales have balanced with center fielders. And now with 2 down in the 5th inning and the base is empty, 8 in a row retired by American League pitchers. Garvey swings at a pitch and doesn't get it. 0-1. Steve struck out in the 1st inning, really unloaded on Jim Palmer in the 3rd. He's 1 for 2. The National League 5 runs, 5 hits, including a double and 3 home runs. Garvey backs off and then fouls a pitch off to the right out of play. So Steve really didn't want any part of that sidearm right-handed toss of Dennis Eckersley. He had his hips in the National League dugout, and Eckersley, by throwing a breaking ball away from him, Garvey was fortunate to even get a piece of it. 0-2. Dennis Eckersley, strike 2 pitch, fastball, foul tipped and held by Fisk. And Garvey strikes out on an inside fastball, and down goes the National League. 9 in a row retired since Garvey's home run, but at the end of 4.5 it remains. National League 5, American League nothing.
He will replace Garvey there, and the rest of the lineup remains the same, with Lavelle on the mound for Sparky Anderson.
Willie Montanez taking over along with Joe Morgan, Davey Concepcion, and Ron Say. The outfield of Dave Winfield, George Foster, and Dave Parker. Ted Simmons behind the plate, Gary Lavelle on the mound. This is Vin Scully along with Brett Musburger from Yankee Stadium, the 48th All-Star Game. Carlton Fisk will start it off. He'll be followed by Rick Burleson, and then Dennis Eckersley's spot. And, of course, the American League now getting great pitching, but they need some runs. Fisk struck out in the 2nd inning. The right-hand hitting catcher from Boston is 0 for 1. Gary Lavelle kicks and deals, and the fastball is high. Ball 1. 1-0. Fisk, they play him to full. In fact, Parker well over towards right center. They'll give their right-hand hitter just about all of right field. Lavelle back to him, took a little bit off, and is fouled back to the screen. 1-1.
Both bullpens now active, Ben. Dave LaRoche up for the American League, and Tom Seaver of the Cincinnati Reds has begun to throw for Sparky Anderson.
Oh, yes. It figures we will see Tommy Terrific. 1-1, the count to Carlton Fisk. Lavelle squints in to get a sign from Simmons. Left-hander's next one is swung on and missed. 1-2. It has been strikeout time on the old plantation, and a lot of high-priced ball players eating a little humble pie tonight. In 4.5 innings, we've had a dozen strikeouts, 6 for each side. Here's the 1-2 pitch on the way, and that's high. Fastball that's sailed, and the count 2-2. The National League with 4 in the first and 1 in the third. The American League has not gotten a man to second base, and it is 5-0 National in the 5th inning. 2-2 curve is popped up on the left side, and out on the grass is Davey Concepcion, dancing to his left a little bit, and makes the catch for the out. So Fisk pops it up, and the batter now, Rick Burleson, who flied to center in the second inning. We have had 2 magnificent defensive plays in the game. George Foster went to the center field wall and leaped high to take a possible home run away from Rod Carew. And in the top of the 5th inning, Freddie Lynn made a great catch crashing into the fence to take an extra base hit away from Joe Morgan. Wilson fouls it away off to the right, upstairs in the count 0-1.
Ben, Larry Heisel moving for a bat in the American League dugout. He would bat for Dennis Eckersley, and that would bring in Dave LaRoche then in the 6th inning for Billy Martin.
Which would give Billy just one other left-hander, Sparky Lyle, to work with. Fastball outside, figuring that Vida Blue cannot play. 1-1, the count to Burleson. Lavelle ready, and the 1-1 pitch. Comebacker, but it's too high for him, so behind the bag at second is Concepcion to throw him out. So Burleson going out short to first. 2 down in the 5th inning, and Eckersley will not come up. Larry Heisel coming up. So far, it has been somewhat of a one-sided game, but we were talking about milestones in All-Star history. All you have to do is go back to 1946. Ted Williams hit 2 home runs, and the American League won that little dandy 12-0. Larry Heisel, originally signed by the Philadelphia Phillies. Maybe it was a case of asking too much for him. But probably, as Larry points out, it was a case of where he asked too much of himself. He eventually went to Albuquerque after coming to the Dodgers, and Heisel says it was playing under Tommy Lasorda that helped him get his thinking straightened out, and he's doing a great job now in the American League and takes outside ball 1.
And just as you say that, Lasorda appeared on the top step and moved Foster and Winfield a couple of steps closer to the left field line.
Heisel takes another one outside. Of course, in Minnesota, you would think Rod Carew was a one-man gang. But Heisel hitting .298, he has 21 home runs, and he's a big guy in ribbies, 82 runs batted in. So the right-hand hitting Larry Heisel. Gary Lavelle ready in the 2-0 pitch, swung on and missed. That's the typical good left-hander's pitch, a running fastball. And if a right-hander hits it at all, he's going to pop it up. Heisel was fortunate in the sense that he missed it. The 2-1 pitch. Fastball, swung on and missed, and again it had a little tail on it, 2-2. National League 5, American League nothing, with 2 down, bases empty, bottom of the 5th inning. Gary Lavelle into the windup, and the 2-2 pitch is fisted into shallow right field. Big Dave Parker moves up, and one-hands that, and that's it. So the American League rolls over quietly in the 5th inning. They go out in order 1, 2, 3, and at the end of 5. National League 5, American nothing.
We move to the top of the 6th here in Yankee Stadium in this All-Star Game, and a reminder that mail orders are being accepted for this year's All-Star Game program. This souvenir includes a history of the All-Star Game, pictures of all this year's players, and a special feature on the great Jackie Robinson, because this year's game is dedicated to him. For your copy, send a check or money order for $2.50 plus 50 cents for postage and handling, a total of $3, to All-Star Souvenir Program, Post Office Box 350, New York, New York, 146. Post Office Box 350, New York, New York, 146. And so, Ben, we've got Butch Weiniger of the Minnesota Twins. He will catch Dave LaRoche of the California Angels. And a new shortstop for Billy Martin, Bert Campaneris of the Texas Rangers takes over.
For Butch Weiniger, of course, he's now an old hand at this thing. Last year, he was the youngest player ever to participate in an All-Star game. Butch was 20 years old. In fact, it was 20 years, 3 months, and 29 days when he got into last year's game. So now, as a grizzled veteran, he takes over behind the plate. LaRoche's fastball, a two-hopper to short. Campaneris to his left, throws him out. Good play.
Excellent defensive work in this game. Lynn and Foster in the outfield. Campanella is now at shortstop. The only foul on either team has encountered has been Yastrzemski in center field, and that's because he is slowed by that painful leg injury early.
George Foster, who doubled in the first inning, eventually came home on Greg Lazinski's home run. Last time up, Foster struck out, so he's 1 for 2. Dave LaRoche and Butch Weiniger behind the plate. Rod Carew and Willie Randolph, Bert Campaneris and George Brett. The outfield of Richie Zisk, Fred Lynn, and Jim Rice. LaRoche heaves a little sigh. The left-hander ready and delivers. Fastball low, ball 1. 1-0. LaRoche, fastball, curve, and sinker. Dave checking. Weiniger in a low crouch behind the plate. The 1-0 pitch, fastball fouled away in the count 1-1. 1 ball, 1 strike to George Foster. Top of the 6th inning. 5-0 National League. And LaRoche following Jim Palmer, Jim Kern, Dennis Eckersley to the mound. Palmer charged with all 5 runs and 5 hits. Kern was just about perfect, so was Eckersley, so LaRoche has somewhat of a tough act to follow. 1-1 pitch to George Foster, inside, ball 2, 2-1. The last 10 in a row retired by American League pitching. The last shot fired by the National League, Steve Garvey's home run in the 3rd inning. LaRoche starts to go, but Foster isn't ready, and George backs out. LaRoche checking. Foster with that brackish brown bat. Now left-hander LaRoche delivers, and it's popped foul off first base. Carew coming over to the railing. That should be well back in out of play, and it is. A good 8 or 9 rows. 2-2 the count to George Foster. Earlier we were giving you some of the momentous games down through the years. We can duck in a few more. In 1959, a second annual All-Star game was aided to add to the Players' Pension Fund. In 1961, that was the one that made Candlestick famous around the world, when Stu Miller in relief was blown off the mound at Candlestick Park. Foster hits one foul, knocked down by Tommy Lasorda. The second game that year ended in the only tie in the series that was played in Boston. 2-2 to Foster, 5-0 National League, top of the 6th, 1 away. LaRoche takes another deep sigh. The left-hander's 2-2 pitch. The bouncer back at third. Fair ball. Backhanded by Brett. The long throw in time. Dick Stello, the third base umpire, straddling the line to call it. So Foster is out. Nice play by Brett. 2 down. And here is Dave Winfield. You talk about athletes out here. Here is the athlete.
I think he could have made it in the National Football League or the National Basketball Association if he had selected either of those leagues as he came out of the University of Minnesota.
Yeah, they used to call Paul Giel many years ago the Northern Star as the brightest light on the campus. He was the biggest man on campus in the University of Minnesota, Dave Winfield. Big right-hand batter. LaRoche delivers low, ball 1, 1-0. When he graduated from college, he was drafted in baseball, football, and basketball. And he elected to go with baseball. He just recently signed a multi-year contract with San Diego. The 1-0 pitch to Dave, outside, ball 2, 2-0. Normally he plays right field, but he's in left field tonight. He found somebody just as big who refused to budge, and Dave Parker. 2-0, the count to Dave Winfield. LaRoche into the windup. Dave delivers, and that's fouled away off to the right, out of play. Dave LaRoche with the California Angels. Dave, a solid competitor, 32 years old, out of New Jersey. The American League getting great pitching, but it might be a case of locking the door and the horses out of sight. And a split as he swings and misses, performed by Dave Winfield. He went every way but up. And the count 2-2.
In a way, LaRoche continues the Cleveland connection. Kern Eckersley and, of course, LaRoche started the season with the Indians and then was traded to the Angels.
I was just going to say, they might have the Indian sign on the National League. At least it's holding up to here. 2-2 to Winfield. Dave LaRoche into the windup, and the 2-2 pitch is fouled away. A fastball off to the right, and it's carried upstairs out of play. Good pitch. Knee-high fastball inside, and there wasn't too much Winfield could do with it.
Then on October 8th, of course, it'll be the playoffs, the American and the National League Championships, and that'll go right to the World Series, which begins Saturday, October 15th, and CBS Radio will be there with all the play-by-play direct from the ballparks. So for the best in sports, keep tuned to the CBS Radio Network.
2 balls and 2 strikes to Dave Winfield. 2 out in the 6th, 5-0 National League. And it looked like he turned it over high, ball 3, 3-2. Turning it over somewhat like a screwball, but not quite the same strain. Most left-handers now, when they change up off a fastball, like to give that inverted twist, they can just tail away a little bit. 3-2 the count. LaRoche delivers, fastball fouled away. That could be the boomer down there in the bullpen, down in the dugout stretching. Looks like George Scott is getting ready to swing a stick.
Then we could put together a pretty good basketball team. Winfield, Gary Lavelle was a great high school basketball player. So, too, was John Candelaria of the National League. So we got 3 who can go to that front line. We got the size.
Here's a 3-2 pitch to Dave Winfield. LaRoche delivers. A broken bat fly ball deep to right field. And at the wall is Rice, and he gets the glove on it and drops the ball. Into second base goes Winfield. He hit that off the end of the bat, and I would swear he cracked it. I would bet he cracked it, because as bad a hitter as I was, I can hear a bat crack from 50 feet at least. And for right fielder Jim Rice, it hit him right in the glove. And as he staggered into the fence, the ball came out. But they are ruling it a hit.
Really no excuse on that play. Rice had the ball in his glove. You can't blame the wall. It was simply a ball he should have caught. I suspect, in fairness to Jim Rice, we should point out that he's been doing designated hitting duty up for the Boston Red Sox, and so perhaps he's not as familiar at right field as he should have been. Nevertheless, he should have caught the ball.
I should say there are 3 All-Star Game official scorers. Red Foley of the New York Daily News, Earl Lawson of the Cincinnati Post are 2 of the 3 as say swings and misses. Ken Negro of the Baltimore Morning Sun, the 3rd. And with 3 scorers, it's probably majority rule. So Winfield had doubled to right. And with 2 down, here is Say, and it's the first National Leaguer to get aboard since Garvey's home run in the 3rd inning, with the National League leading 5-0. The pitch at Say's feet. Ron Say, recently this year, had 9 straight hits. The record is 12. An even better performance he put on last year in a doubleheader. Best hitting performance I've ever seen. He went about 9 times against the Cincinnati Reds. Had 6 hits and 3 line drive outs, and I mean wicked outs. The pitch high ball, 2-1. And I know when hitters around the National League, and particularly Cincinnati or Dodger players who saw it, talk about hitting performances, that's the one they always bring up. 6 for 9 and 3 ropes per out.
And a pretty good April this year with 29 RBIs, that grand slam home run off Tom Seaver. I was out in Dodger Stadium when they exploded for 7 runs that night against Tom.
The pitch outside ball 3. Yeah, not a bad April. 11 home runs, 29 RBIs in 20 games. However, as always happens in either league, you eventually are brought to your knees if you play this game long enough. In fact, when the season broke for the All-Star, Say had 3 hits in his last 40 at-bats and came up with 2 on the last day, so he was in quite a slump. The 3-1 pitch to Ron Say, way outside, ball 4. At first and second, here comes Speed Rose to bat for Gary Lavelle. And if they bring in Tommy Sievers, I will have a dramatic moment of the ball game for sure. Speed Rose coming up, hitting in the number 7 slot. A truly remarkable ball player.
After last year's victory by the National League in Philadelphia, Rose commented very seriously, the best game would have been to match the first National League unit against the second team from the National League.
Yeah, Pete talks the way he plays. No finesse. He goes to the heart of the matter, with apologies to Graham Greene. So Pete hitting right-handed against Dave LaRoche. 2 on, 2 out. 6th inning, 5-0 National League. Fastball is popped in the air to right field. So Jim Rice moving to his left, waiting now, and makes the catch for the out. So the National League comes up empty in the 6th, and the key to the inning was a good play by Bert Campaneris on the ball hit by Dave Parker. No runs, 1 hit, and 2 left. At the end of 5.5 innings, National 5, American nothing.
Tom Seaver on the mound for Sparky Anderson, receiving an ovation from the fans in New York. It was earlier this year that he was traded by the New York Mets to the Cincinnati Reds. A couple of other changes. Jerry Morales of the Chicago Cubs will be in center field. Ellis Valentine of Montreal is out in right field. And Gary Templeton, the sensational young shortstop of the St. Louis Cardinals, has moved to that position. Then so very much has been written and spoken about the trade of Tom Seaver from the Mets to the Reds. A couple of observations. One is that with all of this pressure on Tom Seaver, he has had a magnificent year when you consider the diversion. But secondly, I want to point out that one of the players the Mets picked up in that trade from Cincinnati appears to me like he's got a chance to be an outstanding outfielder. His name is Steve Henderson. He's hit 5 home runs already. 4 of them have won games for the Mets, and 1 of them sent it into extra innings. Now, I'm not trying to demean Tom Seaver, obviously, but perhaps 10 years from now, we will be talking about Steve Henderson as we put Tom Seaver in the Hall of Fame.
Well, as so often happens, it could very well, as it was, turn out to be a trade of desperation. The Mets had an unhappy man who was a leader. And the one thing I'm sure Joe Torre felt, if he's a leader, I can't have an unhappy leader or he makes my whole ball club unhappy. So they had to deal out of desperation. For Cincinnati, they had already lost their number 1 left-hander in Don Gullett. They were desperate to catch the Dodgers, and so they gave up Steve Henderson, who was an outstanding hitter in the minor leagues. Everybody knew that. So again, it was a trade somewhat out of desperation that will pay off for both now. And as the years go by, no doubt Henderson will really make his presence known. Line drive, base hit by Rod Carew. And he gets a standing ovation. When Tom Seaver came to Cincinnati, he was the first to admit he was terribly nervous when he made his first start. The Dodgers, the first night they saw him in the first game of a big series with the Reds, he started and lost. And he warmed up like I have never seen him. He was terribly nervous. And I just wonder, with all of his years in the big leagues, if he isn't a great deal more nervous than you might expect in these circumstances. Line drive off Seaver's glove. He picks it up, goes to first in time, and they almost had to take him out on his shield with that one. So first Carew greeted him with a bullet for a base hit, and Randolph almost took him apart. Seaver threw his hands up in front of his face, knocked it down, ran over toward the third base foul line and got his man, but the Reds almost lost it right there. Seaver staggered, almost fell down, and he did a good job of saving what would have been not only a base hit, but that would have eaten him up and taken him out of there. But for the first time tonight, the American League gets a man to second base. It is Rod Carew. They have 3 hits.
Pitchers tell you that the ball is livelier because it's coming back at him a lot quicker, and that one was all over Tom Seaver.
George Brett, as walked and slide to left, sails a slider for a strike in the count 0-1. Martinez and Morgan, Templeton and Rose, Winfield, Morales, and Valentine in the outfield, Simmons behind the plate. The strike 1 fastball hit late up along third. Rose looks his man back at second, throws to Martinez for the out. Willie is one of the great showmen in the league. He handles everything one-handed. In fact, if you had the right side of an infield of Willie Martinez at first and Tito Fuentes at second, you would never have to use mustard the rest of your life.
You would indeed capture the hot dog championship of North America. Willie Martinez does everything that Dick Stewart once wished that he could do.
And does it exceptionally well, but he really puts on a show. Here's Fred Lynn, and he takes outside ball 1, 1-0. Fred Lynn came into the game hitting only .259, and you use that word advisedly because you're talking about all-stars. 9 home runs, and Freddie takes low. 36 runs batted in. 2-0 the count to Fred Lynn. Lynn picking up for teammate Carl Yastrzemski in center field. Seaver's fastball fouled away. Put it in a good spot. It was not that the pitch was that fast, but the location was perfect. Lynn was guessing inside. Seaver got the fastball outside, and Fred was fortunate to get a piece of it. 2-1. 2 down, 6th inning. 5-0 National League. Seaver deals. Good sinking fastball. Swung on and missed. 2-2. Seaver, one of the premier strikeout pitchers in history. Tom out of a stretch, looks at second, and the 2-2 pitch is popped up in foul ground. Rose crossing the line, Templeton back of him in foul territory. Rose falls on the tarp roller and can't make a play. Pete was trying to find a little area between the box seat railing and the tarpaulin roller, and he slid off and sat down. And it doesn't look as if they'll charge an error. Templeton was there just as Rose slipped and fell. And the ball, I think, might have even hit Rose slightly off the side of the head. Pete is not going to rub one way or the other, but it came awfully close to hitting him in the head as he went down. All right, Fred Lynn still up there. 2 balls and 2 strikes. Seaver delivers, slider fouled away. And how in the world anybody can hit that hard slider that just seems to go inside your shirt? Lynn was able to fight it off and foul it away. Seaver struck out 19 in a game, 10 straight at one stretch. He just overpowered everybody. 2-2. Lynn waiting. Seaver looks back at Carew. Fastball just outside. Ball 3. Seaver started to walk off. 3-2 to Fred Lynn. On deck, the right-hand hitting Richie Zisk of the Chicago White Sox. 3-2. Fastball is high. Ball 4 to Seaver in a little jam. It not only marks the first time the American League has had a runner at second, it marks the first time they have had 2 men on in an inning. So Seaver has given up a base hit and a walk, was almost decapitated on that shot by Willie Randolph, but got him. And now with 2 out, here is Zisk, who struck out and singled. Seaver delivers, and it's stroked to right center field, and that's in there, going to the wall. Here comes Carew to score. Gets the ball back to Templeton, and in comes Lynn on a double by Richie Zisk. The American League is on the scoreboard. So it is 5-2 National League. Jim Rice coming up. Again, we tell you, and I'm not kidding about Seaver, he can get so nervous that he is very ineffective. And it's very much that kind of a situation as he returns to New York for the first time in the prestigious All-Star game, and he's in trouble. Tom delivers, and it's popped in the air foul off to the right of the plate. Simmons looking at Martinez, but now Ted turns and makes the catch for the out. So Rice fouls out. The American League gets back in the ball game. 2 runs, 2 hits. Richie Zisk left at second base. And at the end of 6, National League 5, American League 2.
And back at Yankee Stadium, it is the top of the 7th inning with Bill Campbell of the Boston Red Sox on the mound. At third base is Greg Nettles of the New York Yankees. In the outfield, Ken Singleton of the Baltimore Orioles has moved to right, so Jim Rice of the Boston Red Sox goes to left. George Scott of the Red Sox will be at first base. And then in looking at how the free agents have done so far in a little over 1/2 of a season, the one who may have been the best buy of them all, and I use that word judiciously because they still spent millions for him, is Bill Campbell of the Boston Red Sox. He has been magnificent so far for the Red Sox. Coming out of the bullpen, he has 17 saves, and he has won 9 times.
I think there are 2 players, if I owned a franchise, one would be Campbell, and the other, I think, would have been Don Gullett. Those are the 2 that if I had that kind of money. Ellis Valentine will start it off, followed by Ted Simmons and then Joe Morgan. We better set the American League now because we had wholesale changes for you. Bill Campbell into the windup. Right-hander ready, delivers, and the first one's in the dirt to the screen, ball 1. Puts Weiniger behind the plate. George Scott at first. Willie Randolph so far going all the way at second. Bert Campaneris at short. Greg Nettles at third. The 1-0 pitch on the way. Sidearm fastball up around the eyes, ball 2. In the outfield, Jim Rice is in left. Fred Lynn is in center. And Kenny Singleton is in right. Bill Campbell very good fastball and an excellent screwball. A 2-0 pitch on the way, low, ball 3. In fact, some of the hitters say the only flaw for Campbell, he is, quote, in love with his screwball. He perhaps likes to throw it too much. At least that was the opinion of 1 or 2 American League hitters we talked to. Bill Ready, and his 3-0 pitch to Ellis Valentine is low, and he opens up with a base on ball.
Ben Campbell does not have a very good memory of Yankee Stadium. His last outing here on a Friday night, the first game of a series against the New York Yankees, the Red Sox were leading, and Roy White tagged him for a home run. The Yankees went on to win that game, sweep the series, and the Red Sox had a lot of difficulty getting back on the winning track, and the big blow was White's home run off Campbell.
There are a lot of pitchers who have unhappy memories of Yankee Stadium down through the years. Campbell joins a rather illustrious group. Ted Simmons, now hitting left-handed, takes outside, ball 1. 2 plays in the 6th inning. Balanced scales, no doubt. 1, the bullet off the bat of Willie Randolph that was flagged in self-defense by Seaver. Had it gone the other way as a base hit or even suffering serious injury to Seaver. The next one is low, ball 2 to Ted Simmons. The other play that might be overlooked was that foul ball by Fred Lynn when Rose got tangled up with Templeton and the tarpaulin roller. And the ball that should have been caught was not caught since Rose stumbled and fell. That would have been the 3rd out. So you take your pick. Perhaps the scales did balance the 6th. The pitch to Simmons, foul back in the count 2-1. And, of course, as a left-handed batter, Simmons figures to see that Bill Campbell screwball. The National League, 5 runs, 6 hits. However, they have only 1 hit since Garvey homered leading off the 3rd inning. The American League, they did not do anything until the 6th inning when they scored twice. Campbell ready, and there goes Valentine. There's a 2-hopper flag by Randolph, who gets the out at first. Valentine safely into second. What made that a remarkable play by Willie Randolph, he had to lose sight of the ball for a split second as Valentine passed him. And you ask any goalie in hockey to be shielded out, you almost can't see the shot, you lose it. But Randolph was still quick and agile enough to pick it up and make the play. The only thing that really helped him, the ball was hit to his gloved side, and that made the difference. So Valentine at second base on a hit-and-run ground ball, 1 away, and here is Joe Morgan. Little Joe homered, lined out, and was robbed of an extra base hit by Fred Lynn. Campbell screwball over for a strike, 0-1. He throws it hard. On deck, Willie Montanez. So Campbell's screwball will see back-to-back left-hand hitters, Morgan and Montanez. 5-2 National. We're in the 7th. Morgan swings and comes up empty in the count 0-2. 5 runs, 6 hits for the National League. They were spectacular for 2.5 innings against Jim Farmer. But against Messrs. Kern, Eckersley, LaRoche, and Campbell, just 1 hit. Now the strike 2 pitch on the way. High fastball, ball 1. Somewhat of a showcase pitch just to show Morgan the fastball, but he wasn't any idea of coming over the plate with it 0-2. Campbell out of a stretch. Right-hander ready. Looks back at Valentine. The screwball gets Morgan swinging. Good pitch. I can see why he's in love with it. 2 down, and Willie Montanez coming up. Campbell, by the way, comes in with a fine earned run average of 2.5. Well, Morgan strikes out. LaRoche did not get a strikeout. 7 National Leaguers have gone down on strike. Oddly enough, Seaver, who is a strikeout pitcher, did not get anybody in the 6th. So there have been 6 American Leaguers to strike out, and that all came in the first 4 innings. Here's Montanez. Campbell delivers high. Willie Olay, a matador, pull away from that inside pitch, ball 1. Willie Montanez, in his first All-Star appearance, fine all-around ball player. Runs funny. He at one time broke his leg many years ago. Swings, doesn't get it, 1-1. Montanez, when he first came to Philadelphia and played the outfield, you couldn't believe a man could play the outfield or even get to the big leagues with that kind of a crooked leg. But he's got all that ability. And when he runs and you see him once, you never forget it. 1 ball and 1 strike to Willie Montanez, trying to pick up Ellis Valentine from second base in the 7th inning. National League 5, American League 2, and making noises. Bill Campbell ready. Another look at Valentine, and the pitch fouled away off to the left upstairs, 1-2. When the American League hits in the bottom of the 7th, Butch Weiniger will start it off. Then Bert Campaneris. Bill Campbell has moved around in wholesale changes, so we'll wait and see. We don't have the official offensive American League lineup. We only see them as they take the field defensively, so we have to wait. The 1-2 pitch to Montanez, swung on and missed, strike 3, and the screwball gets Morgan and Montanez. The National leaves Ellis Valentine at second base, and at the end of 6.5 innings, the National League 5, the American League 2.
We move to the bottom of the 7th inning. The American League will be coming up, trailing by those 3 runs, 5-2. Butch Weiniger and Bert Campaneris will be the first 2 hitters for the American League. Then one lineup change defensively for Sparky Anderson. Manny Trillo of the Chicago Cubs has gone into second base. He represents one of the many outstanding and surprising stories of the first half of the season, and that, of course, the turnaround of the Chicago Cubs, who lead the Philadelphia Phillies by 2 games at this All-Star break.
And I'll tell you another thing about Manny Trillo. I think he throws the ball as hard or harder than any second baseman that has played in the National League in some time. This is Vin Scully along with Brett Musburger at Yankee Stadium, the 48th All-Star game, and things are just starting to warm up. Butch Weiniger takes high, ball 1-0. With Manny Trillo taking over for Joe Morgan, the only All-Star still in there would be second baseman Willie Randolph of the American League from the Yankees. Breaking ball over for a strike. Weiniger, who picked up after Carlton Fisk started the ball game. The next pitch to Butch, a ground ball wide of first, under Montanez glove, through into right field, base hit. So Weiniger, a ground single to right. And Tom Seaver returns to New York, and things have been somewhat uncomfortable for him. 3 hits and 2 runs in 1 inning plus. And the batter now is Bert Campaneris. Rick Burleson went 0 for 2, so it's Campaneris' turn. Greg Nettles, the third baseman, is out on deck, so if you're keeping score with us, put Nettles in the number 9 slot. And the pitch swung on and missed. So Greg Nettles on deck. Bert Campaneris checking in against Tom Seaver, and the American League fans now starting to do a little hand clapping, trying to shake something loose. Campaneris trying to go to right field, but misses, and the count 0-2. With Montanez standing directly back of Weiniger, and with Trillo shading Campaneris up the middle, an inviting hole on the right side, and Bert took a shot at it.
Ben, I think Yankee fans can tolerate just so much applause for Tom Seaver before they go back cheering for the American League, and here they come again.
It was ever thus. Seaver set, the right-hander deals, and the fastball a little high. The Dodger pitchers, Don Sutton went 3. Then Gary Lavelle went 2. They each allowed just 1 hit. Tom Seaver is working his second inning. He gave up 2 runs and 3 hits. The 1-2 pitch, slider, foul tipped and held by Ted Simmons, and Campaneris strikes out. 1 away, but now here comes Greg Nettles. And the Yankee fans and American League enthusiasts rooting for the Yankee third baseman to shake him up. He can do it. He has 20 home runs this year, 58 runs batted in. Well, Greg Nettles, left-hand hitting third baseman, checks in against Tom Seaver. Tommy Lasorda on the steps again, telling this time Jerry Morales to move. The pitch to Nettles low. Morales starting to move over towards right center. He wants Dave Winfield to go deep and straightaway left. Ellis Valentine is only 10 feet from the warning track in right. The 1-0 pitch on the way. Seaver delivers, foul back out of play. 1-1.
Then out in the National League bullpen, Rick Russell of the Cubs is up and getting loose. And, of course, Rich Gossage of the Pittsburgh Pirates is also out there, should Sparky elect to bring him on.
1-1 the count to Greg Nettles. 1 out, 7th inning, 5-2 National League. Tom Seaver delivers, and Nettles fouls it back to the screen, and the count 1-2. The National jumped out in front with a 4-run first inning. Home run by Morgan, an RBI double by Foster, a 2-run home run by Luzinski. When Garvey homered in the third to make it 5-0 National League, it looked like that was the end of a beautiful evening. However, in the bottom of the 6th, the American League took its best shots at Tom Seaver, and they got back into the ball game at 5-2. Seaver ready, and the 1-2 pitch. Nettles fouls it away right into the mask of plate umpire Bill Kunkel. 1-2, the count to Greg Nettles. The boomer, George Scott, in the number 1 slot, formerly occupied by Rod Carew. So Scott is out on deck. Martinez not holding the bag on Weiniger. They don't expect the catcher to do any run, 3 runs down. Seaver looks over there, comes to the plate, off speed, rolled down to shortstop. Templeton kicks it, and everybody's safe. Templeton of the St. Louis Cardinals is only 21 years old. There are people in the National League who say he will be an all-star for many, many years. One of them is Sparky Anderson. He had what appeared to be a double play ball, an easy force at second, and in moving to his left, he was going in the right direction. He might have taken his eye off the ball for a split second, and he kicked it to the error. And now, suddenly, the American League has the tying run at the plate in the person of all people, George the Boomer Scott. 25 home runs. Seaver's sliders swung on and missed. Scott with 57 RBIs, and he tried to hit that thing to Boston. 0-1. But the American League has gotten the break it's been looking for. Seaver at the bell. Tom's next one missed outside with a breaking ball, and the count 1-1. On deck is the only man to go the distance tonight, Willie Randolph. 1 ball, 1 strike to George Scott. Seaver delivers and is a high pop fly to shallow center. Morales coming in a hurry. He's there now and makes the catch a la Willie Mays. The crowd oos because he put it in the basket at his left knee, but he's that kind of a player. So Morales makes his basket catch. 2 down. And the batter now coming up will be Willie Randolph. Randolph struck out twice and then almost ate Seaver up with a bullet in the 6th inning. Tom might have made the defensive play of his career to prolong it for sure. The pitch to Randolph, breaking ball down and away, ball 1. National League 5, American League 2, 2 out in the 7th. The American League with Weiniger at second and Nettles at first. Seaver ready in the 1-0 pitch. Is a broken bat, blooper to center. Upward is Morales. It's up. Here comes Weiniger to score. And Nettles starts at second by 3 National League. So then the American League has jumped right back into this game, scoring twice in the 6th, 1 here in the 7th, and now old folks coming to the plate. It'll be Ron Fairley. And, of course, you are so familiar with Fairley from his days as a member of the Dodgers. Been around for some 20 years, and they asked that trivia question about ball players who've been around for 4 decades. You give Ron Fairley 3 more years, and he'll be right there with Mickey Vernon, Early Wynn, and Ted Williams. Ron Fairley came to the Dodgers off the SC campus in 1958, and everybody said one thing: he's a little too thick-legged. It doesn't look like he's going to last. Well, he's not going to last, but he's playing 19 years in the big league, and he's a marvelous hitter. 5-3 National League. Seaver delivers. Ground foul outside of first and down the line. 0-1. There are only a few players around who played in the 50s, and they are still playing. Can you think of some of them? Well, Brooks Robinson, who was a sometimes player, is still at it. Willie McCovey is another. Tim McCarver is a third. And the 4th is left-hand pitcher Jim Cott and Ron Fairley. They are the 5 men who have started their careers in the 50s and are still playing. The strike 1 pitch, Fairley pops it foul off first. Martinez coming over to the railing. Will not have a play. It's well back into the seats out of play. And the count 0-2. Here in the inning, Weiniger a single to right. Campanella struck out. Nettles a ground ball to Templeton, who kicked it for an error. The only error in the game. And then after Scott flied out, that should have been at least the 3rd out. Randolph singled to get the run home. Seaver 0-2 to Fairley. Tom ready, delivers, and it's outside. Ball 1. Fairley checking his swing. They're both off the campus of SC. And to give you an idea, the first time Ron Fairley ever saw Tom Seaver was in an alumni game. Seaver was pitching for the college team, and Fairley came back to the campus as a prestigious alumnus. Here's the 1-2 pitch to Fairley, outside ball 2. How did they do that classic confrontation way back then on the campus? Fairley hit a home run. Well, he's up there now with the score 5-3 National League. Fairley backs out wearing the Toronto Blue Jay uniform. He looks at home in any uniform. Seaver out of a stretch, and the 2-2 breaking ball hit foul way down the right field line. There wasn't much that Ron could do with a slider in on the hand but pull it foul. He jumped on it, and the count remains 2-2. In Fairley's earlier years in the National League, you could give him a lot of trouble on change-ups. But I don't know now. After 19 years, he no doubt can wait on that pitch. Seaver checks the runners. And the 2-2 fastball inside. Straightened him up. Ball 3. Fred Lynn is on deck. And the runners will be going. Greg Nettles from second. Willie Randolph from first. 2 outs, 7th inning. National League 5, American League 3. Fasten your safety belts. We've got a ball game now. There they go. Seaver deal. Fastball got him swinging. And it was a perfect location. Knee-high outside. Fairley was looking for a pitch to pull. And the American League comes up a couple of bucks short. 1 run, 2 hits, 1 error, 2 left. And at the end of 7, National 5, American 3.
Sparky Lyle's name is announced here to this sellout crowd. He will start off the 8th inning for manager Billy Martin, and Vince Scully, the American League, has bounced right back into this. 5-3, and Willie Randolph, with that clutch single to score the 3rd run, still out there at second base. So no rest for Willie this All-Star break.
No, indeed, nor for the beleaguered pitching staff of Billy Martin, because considering the fact that Vida Blue is sidelined, there is only one pitcher left in the American League bullpen. That would be Jim Slayton, because Billy Martin has burned them up like a sailor on leave. He has used Jim Palmer, then Jim Kern, Dennis Eckersley, then Dave LaRoche, Bill Campbell, and now Sparky Lyle. And, of course, for Yankee fans, they just love it. So looking at the American League defensively, you have Scott and Randolph, Campaneris and Nettles, Rice, Lynn, and Singleton and Wright. And for the American League in the 8th inning, Gary Templeton, the kid shortstop who kicked the ground ball off the bat of Greg Nettles and gave the American League that golden opportunity coming up. Templeton just starting, very fast, and an excellent ball player. But at 21, before the ball game, he said, "Are you nervous?" He said, "No." I said, "Well, do you like it being in the All-Star game?" He said, "No." I said, "Why not?" He said, "I don't like crowds." Boy, he sure picked the wrong sport, because wherever this kid goes, there'll be crowds.
It's 10 o'clock.
Down and ready to work to Templeton. On deck, Jerry Morales. And the first one is swung out and missed 0-1. Sparky with a magnificent earned run average of 1.5 at the halfway mark. He is 7-3 with the Yankees. He's been in 42 games. He averages about 2 innings a shot. And he's just trying to hold the National League quiet, and that has not been too difficult. Garvey homered in the 3rd inning to make it 5-0, and the National League has not been heard from since. The American League scored twice in the 6th, once in the 7th, and we got ourselves a game. The strike one pitch, a big bouncer over the head of the drawn-in Greg Nettles, on out into left field for the base hit. Templeton is going for 2. Jim Rice throws, not in time.
That raw speed that time of Gary Templeton, who already has tripled 8 times in the National League to lead the league in that category. And then as he hit first base, he just glanced quickly at Jim Rice, made up his mind, and it wasn't close.
No, it wasn't, and it showed you when you can run as well as Templeton can, you put so much pressure on the defense. Nettles had to play in the event of a bunt, and by playing in, the ball was bounced over his head. So a runner at second, nobody out in the 8th inning, and here is Jerry Morales, and he is hit by a pitch which goes over into the American League dugout. So Jerry Morales hit by the pitch, the ball of course dead, Templeton holding at second, and Morales walking to first. He's finishing up in center field for George Foster. Now, coming out on deck after Dave Winfield is Ken Griffey. Griffey has a bad knee. Normally, he is as fast as youth, but not tonight. So with first and second and nobody out, Winfield coming up and Griffey on deck.
Bob Lemon, a coach for Billy Martin, starting to move down there in the American League dugout. They might have to press him into service. Billy Martin in a tremendous jam right now, Ben, because with just one pitcher, he really can't afford to make a change right now in a 5-3 game.
And, of course, you must look back to the third inning. That might be the key to this whole game. At the time, it was 4-0 National League. Palmer was due to bat first in the bottom of the third. And Martin gave him the ball, hoping he could get through the inning and then hit for him. Instead, he gave up the home run immediately to Garvey, and much against his plans, Martin had to take him out, which in a sense meant he wasted Jim Kearns. And now, late in the game, when he is very much in the ballgame, he has only one card left to deal, and that's Jim Clayton. But right now, he's still in pretty good hands with Sparky Lyle. Big Dave Winfield trying to break it open. He looks at a little breaking ball that dips over for a strike, 0-1. 5 runs, 7 hits, 1 error for the National League, 3 runs, 6 hits, no errors for the American League. Lyle at the belt, a look at the runners, and the pitch in the dirt, and goes all the way to the screen, and the runners go up 90 feet. Templeton taking third, Morales to second, and Lyle with a wad of chewing tobacco bulging his left jaw, fit to either swallow it or spit it out in disgust. It's a wild pitch. So Templeton, a bouncing double to left. Morales hit by the pitch, and they move up on the wild pitch. Second and third, nobody out. Dave Winfield with the count, 1 ball and 1 strike. Lyle pitching out of his stretch. The right side of the infield comes up. Nettles up. Campaneris halfway, and the pitch low and inside. Winfield started to swing and held up. Ball 2. 2-1. In a sense, it's been 2 games so far. First, the first 3 innings, it was all National League. The last 2 innings, American League. Here's the 2-1 pitch to Winfield. Ground ball into left field. Templeton will score. Morales, who is hit by a pitch, is running well to score, and it is 7-3 National League. So they pitch to Winfield with first base open and a left-hander on the mound, and he just knocked a hole in him with a single to left and 2 RBIs. And that sends some folks to the exit gates as Reggie Smith comes up now to bat, and Ken Griffey goes back into the dugout. Winfield picks up 2 RBIs, and the National League once more asserting itself here in the late going at the expense of Sparky Lyle. Reggie takes a breaking ball for a strike, 0-1. The Dodgers see mostly right-handed pitching, so Reggie hitting maybe 100 points less as a right-handed batter. He doesn't get that many opportunities, and he strokes it into left field, a base hit. He has a bad leg, so he jogs slowly to first. Winfield at second, and we'll see now if we get a pinch runner for Reggie Smith. Coming up will be Pete Rose, and no one coming out of the National League dugout yet. Sparky Anderson is gesturing out towards Reggie as if to say, just take it easy. Don't run hard. One hand down after the other very slowly on the top steps. Reggie knows what he means. So here is Rose. He flied to right his only trip. Slices one foul off to the right out of play upstairs. So here in the inning, Templeton a bouncing double into left. Morales hit by the pitch. And then after the wild pitch, and here comes a runner. Mike Schmidt is going to run for Reggie Smith. So Schmidt for Smith. At the last moment, they suddenly realize we can't play Mike anyway. He's got a bad hand, so why not let him run? As Reggie Smith comes jogging off, and the first guy to meet him is Joe Morgan, followed by Sparky Anderson. So Mike Schmidt will run for Reggie Smith. 8th inning, and the National League back out in front 7-3. A bouncer over the mound down to Randolph, who looks for the hop, gets it, then throws low, dug out by Scott. Double play. play by Willie Randolph and George Scott. Rose hits into the double play. Dave Winfield moves to third, and with 2 out, Ellis Valentine will be the batter. Double play 4-3, and the only double play in the game tonight. The National League had 1 shot at a double play. It was a ball hit by Nettles in the 7th inning that was kicked by Templeton. So here's Ellis Valentine. His one at bat, he walked in the 7th inning. Curveball is hit to deep left center field, but it's playable. Fred Lynn is back there with a lot of real estate and makes the catch for the out. So the National League winds up with 2 runs, 3 hits. They leave a man, and at the end of 7 1/2, the National League 7, the American League 3.
All-Star game at Yankee Stadium. I'm Christopher Glenn, CBS News.
And we move to the bottom of the 8th inning in this All-Star game with the National League leading the American by a score of 7-3. Then a new pitcher on the mound, Rick Russell. So 3 Cubs on the field right now.
And the fighter, Chicago he is, a 12-game winner, misses low and outside ball 1 to Fred Lynn. He'll be followed by Jim Rice and Kenny Singleton. There's a ground ball to the right side to Trio, and he'll sling him out easily, 1 away. So Kenny Singleton coming up now, followed by Jim Rice. Both managers emptying the bench as best they can. All of the starters have long since gone from the National League. All of the starters have gone with the exception of Willie Randolph in the American League. The National using Sutton, Lavelle, Seaver, and Russell. The American League using Palmer, Kern, Eckersley, LaRoche, Campbell, and Lyle. Rick ready and delivers. Singleton takes a strike on the outside corner. Switch hitter playing right field.
Then they've just sent up a couple of quotes from the National League locker room. Don Sutton was asked if he threw all legal pitches. Yes, he laughed. No sandpaper tonight.
Pitch in the dirt. 1-1 to count. Ken Singleton. Of course, at one time he played here in New York for the Mets, then went to Montreal, then over to the American League. Swings, doesn't get it. 1-2. Rick Russell comes into the game with a 12-3 mark in the National League. He was the first pitcher to win 11 in the National League. Combining with his brother, they become a formidable duo. The pitch way inside, and he hits Singleton. So Ken Singleton is nicked by a pitch, and he walks to first. So Jerry Morales, a teammate of Russell's, was hit by Lyle. So Rick gets a little bit of Singleton, and Kenny goes to first. And the batter is Jim Rice. Bill Kunkel, the plate umpire, asking for a new supply of balls and time out for a moment while they minister to Kenny Singleton's right leg, just below the knee. Gives us a chance to set the National League defensively. Ted Simmons behind the plate. Willie Montanez, Manny Trio, Gary Templeton, and Pete Rose in the infield. Dave Winfield in left. Jerry Morales in center. Ellis Valentine in right. Singleton, flexing that right leg, says he's okay. And Jim Rice, who took over in right field for Reggie Jackson, coming up.
And then the cupboard is bare out of the American League as Jim Slayton of the Milwaukee Brewers gets up and goes to work. No one left after Slayton.
So that's it. And the pitch over for a strike to Rice. When the National League bats in the 9th inning, you have Ted Simmons, then Manny Trio, and Willie Montanez. Pitch swung on and missed. 0-2 the count. Jim Rice. And the National League with 4 in the first, 1 in the third, and 2 in the 8th, leading the Americans 7-3. Breaking ball away. The American League scored twice in the 6th, once in the 7th to get close 5-3, and with 2 out and 2 aboard, Tom Seaver went head-to-head and struck out Ron Fairley to put the lid on the 7th inning. The 1-2 pitch on the way, breaking ball down and away, ball 2. 2-2. Butch Weiniger on deck. I didn't see it. I don't believe we've gotten the paid attendance yet, but it looks like very close to a full house, which would be somewhere around 56,000. The 2-2 pitch is hit over the head of Templeton into center field for a base hit. Singleton stops at second, and so in a moment, Butch Weiniger coming up with 2 on, 1 out. Bottom of the 8th, and the National leading the Americans 7-3. Butch Weiniger singled in the 7th inning. That was the beginning as the American League came back with 1, having scored twice in the 6th. It was somewhat of a stormy return for Tom Seaver. He went 2 innings, allowed 3 runs and 4 hits. Weiniger, left-hand batter waiting. Russell's fastball in there at the knees for a strike, 0-1. Rick is big. He's 6'3" and 230. Rick out of a stretch. Back he comes and shot puts one outside. And the count 1 ball and 1 strike. One of the things that makes Russell outstanding is the fact he is not particularly a home run ball server upper. And when you work in Wrigley Field, that's 1 in a million. Line drive, dug out by Martinez to Templeton for 1. Back to Martinez, double play. A 3-6-3 double play. Weiniger drilled it, but Martinez was all over it to come up with the first double play for the National League. No runs, a hit, a man left. And at the end of 8, National 7, American 3.
Coming up in the All-Star Game, and a reminder again that mail orders are being accepted for this year's All-Star Game program. Souvenir includes a history of the game, pictures of all the players, and a special feature on the great Jackie Robinson, whose widow Rachel Robinson threw out the first ball before we started this game. Now, for your copy, send a check or money order for $2.50 plus 50 cents. That's a total of $3 to All-Star Souvenir Program, Post Office Box 350, New York, New York, 1046. Post Office Box 350, New York, New York, 1046. And as we start the top of the ninth, National League ahead 7-3, Sparky Lyle still on the mound. Jim Slayton has sat back down simply because if the game is tied, they will need a pinch hitter for Sparky Lyle, and then Billy Martin would have to use his last pitcher. Rich Gossage up and throwing for Sparky Anderson in the bullpen.
And the first pitch to Ted Simmons is high. Ball 1-1-0. Lyle, the 6th pitcher, so there's only one left, Slayton, and we can also tell you those American Leaguers who have not made an appearance. Ground ball to third. Nettles up with it. The long throw to Scott in time. 1 away. For Billy Martin, he has on the bench Jason Thompson, Wayne Gross, Don Money, who doesn't figure to play at all, and Thurman Munson. Only 3 players left, plus Slayton. For Sparky Anderson, he used Mike Schmidt as a runner, and he has left Ken Griffey and John Stearns. And that's it. The pitch over for a strike to Manny Trio.
Then some quotes from Jim Palmer. Said he didn't pitch very well. Said it was high sliders to Garvey and Lazinski.
Trio fouls the next one away.
And then, what did you say to Billy Martin when he came out to remove you? Said Jim Palmer, what took you so long?
Yeah, he was tired going in, and he was beaten going out. Here's the strike 2 pitch to Manny Trio. Lyle delivers, and that's grounded foul outside of third and down the line. The National League has 1 pitcher left, and that's Gossage. The American League has 1 pitcher left, Slayton. And only Griffey and Stearns for pinch hitting duty for the National, Thompson, Gross, and Munson for the American. So the crowd saw a show. All-star cast indeed. 1-2 the count of Manny Trio. Lyle delivers, swung on and missed, strike 3. So Manny Trio strikes out. 2 down, top of the 9th inning, and Willie Martinez, who started that double play to slam the lid on the 8th inning, coming up. Martinez took over for Garvey. It was feast or famine for Garvey. He hit the ball once tonight, and he buried it out in left center field for a home run. All right, Willie Martinez, left-hand hitting first baseman at the plate. 7 runs, 9 hits, and an error for the National League. 3 runs, 7 hits, no errors for the American League. Breaking ball is swung on and missed, 0-1. Lyle feet together, looks down to get a sign from Weiniger. Now the left-hander back. Martinez thumbs one down to Willie Randolph, and the second baseman throws him out. And the National League goes quietly in the 9th inning. And the score at the end of 8.5 innings. National 7, American 3.
Anderson exhausts his pitching staff with the appearance of Rich Gossage of the Pittsburgh Pirates, who comes on here in the bottom of the 9th. Sparky Anderson feeling safe. He has a 4-run lead. 7-3. Bert Campaneris will be the first hitter sent up by Millie Martin. And Joaquin Andahar, John Candelaria, Steve Carlton, they're all on the National League staff, but as Ben Skelly has pointed out, because of an assortment of ailments, they cannot work here.
You know, it's a very interesting problem for the managers of both clubs. In the sense, you want to get everybody in the ballgame, but the one particular area that is so open to criticism is the pitching staff when you were talking about pennant races. And I'm sure Sparky is thinking about that, as is Billy Martin. So although he used Sutton for 3, he couldn't possibly play the game here without using Seaver, so he got Seaver for 2. He's very conscious of the fact that Rick Russell and the Cubs are in a dogfight in the National League East. So Russell pitches 1 inning, and then he goes to a right-hander who means so much to one of the pursuing and contending clubs in the East with Pittsburgh, Rich Gossett. John Stearns will handle him behind the plate. So really the only player on the bench who could swing a bat who is not in the lineup is Ken Griffey, who has a very bad knee. He's the only man left on the National League. Again, it shows you that with the injuries to the pitching staffs, both managers have done a marvelous job because they're just back to the wall. And with Martin, he has Slayton, and here's the last of the Mohegans for Sparky Anderson, Rich Gossett. He'll be pitching to Bert Campaneris, then Greg Nettles, and George Scott. And if you like fastballs, take a good look at this guy. Gossett delivers, fastball fouled away, 0-1. In 82 innings so far this year, he has struck out 95. 0-1 the count. Rich Gossett trying to put the nails in and finish up the job and turn out the lights at Yankee Stadium. Right-hander ready, and the strike 1 pitch outside, 1-1. Campaneris, finishing up for Burleson, has had 1 at-bat, and he struck out in the 7th inning. Rose up about even with the bag at third. The pitch to Burt moves outside. Ball 2, 2-1. The 5th National League pitcher, Sutton, Lavelle, Seaver, Russell, and Gossett. And the American League has used 6, Palmer, Kern, Eckersley, LaRoche, Campbell, and Lyle. The next one rolling outside, ball 3. 3-1 to Bert Campaneris. Greg Nettles on deck, then George Scott and Willie Randolph. Here's the 3-1 pitch, fastball down the pipe, 3-2. 7 runs, 9 hits, 1 error for the National League. 3 runs, 7 hits, no errors for the American League. Gossett delivers 3-2, and it's foul back. The National League has left only 4. They haven't had that many opportunities. The American League has left 7. And, of course, the National League electrifying the crowd with 3 home runs tonight. Joe Morgan and Steve Garvey with the bases empty. Greg Luzinski with a man aboard. Gossett's ready, 3-2, fastball low, ball 4. Well, Bert Campaneris to first base, and Greg Nettles coming up. Nettles batted in the 7th inning and hit what looked like a possible double play ball that was kicked by the kid shortstop, Gary Templeton. So Nettles coming up a second time with George Scott on deck. Bottom of the 9th inning. The National League trying to make it 6 straight, trying to make it 14 out of 15, and in a sense trying to really irritate the American League in one of their crown jewels, Yankee Stadium. The pitch high and inside, ball 1. The 3rd time in history the All-Star game has been played here. The American League won in 39, the National League won in 60, and the National is leading in 77. Gossett's ready, a backward glance at Campaneris, and the pitch is hot foul behind the plate. Stearns stumbles, stays on his feet, has a look, and it's way out of play. 1-1. The National League defensively using 3 catchers tonight, Ben Simmons and now Stearns. 2 first basemen, Garvey and Martinez, Morgan and Trio, Concepcion and Templeton at short, Shea and Rose at third. And they've used 6 outfielders. The pitch low. Luzinski and Winfield in left. Foster and Morales in center. Parker relieved by Valentine in right. Gossett's ready, and the 2-1 fastball is a high fly ball down the right field line, peeling off foul. A trio of National Leaguers come over, but it's back in for Rose. Martinez leaning on the tarpaulin roller, but had no chance to get to it. 2-2. The ball game was late getting started. It's probably about 2.5 hours old, although that is unofficial time. So a very big crowd at Yankee Stadium, although we never did get the official paid attendance. The 2-2 pitch, foul back, out of play. Still 2-2. The National League scored 4 in the first, 1 in the third, 2 more in the 8th. The American League tied tied up until they got to Seaver with 2 in the 6th and 1 in the 7th. But then the National with the 2 in the 8th moved out in front comfortably again. The 2-2 pitch is swung on and missed, strike 3. So Nettles strikes out. Gossage is still up to his old trick. 1 away, and George Scott the batter. Rod Carew went 1 for 3. He had hit back to the box. George Foster made a great catch to possibly take a home run away from him. He singled his last time up, and then Scott came up for his first at-bat in the 7th inning and flied out to shallow center. The George right-hand hitting first baseman 0 for 1. We now get the paid attendance, which is always part of the story, and it's a whopper. 56,683. 56,683 paid. Breaking ball low in the count, 1-1. 1 away, bottom of the 9th. National League 7, American League 3. Rich Gossage, leaning on his left knee, now straightens up. And the 1-1 pitch to Scott, a little high. George started to pull the trigger and thought better of it. 2-1. Willie Randolph, who is the only all-star to shine all night, going all the way at second base. Of course, down Money's sideline, he didn't have anybody else to play. And the pitch is low. Ball 3. 3-1. So Scott backs out. Alex Dramus coaching at third. Bob Lemon at first. So Chicago and Milwaukee well represented out on the line. 3-1. Gossage ready. Right-hander deals. And there's a high drive in the deep right center field. Back goes Morales and Ballantyne. It's gone. Talking about the pitching philosophy. High fastball, if you can hit it the other way, go to it. And Scott went out and got it and hit it over the 385 sign in right center field. That makes it 7-5 National League. With 1 out, Willie Randolph takes low. Ball 1 and hold everything. Sparky Anderson going out to the mound. So George Scott tries to resuscitate the American League and gets it close again.
And with 1 out and Randolph up, then Thurman Munson has stepped out on deck. He would be the next hitter against Rich Gossage.
And if Randolph, of course, gets aboard, Munson then becomes the potential tying run, and the Yankee fans are in ecstasy at the sight of it. All right, Sparky has had his few words with Rich Gossage. 7-5, National League, bottom of the 9th. Fastball is low, ball 2. So the National League hit 3 home runs in the first 3 innings of the game. And the American League finally gets a 2-run home run in the 9th by George Scott. Fastball for a strike, 2-1. Gossage has allowed only 5 home runs the first half of the year. And he's touched up for 1 in the inning tonight. The 2-1 fastball is outside, ball 3. And Thurman Munson begins to stir in the on-deck circle. And Munson waiting for a chance to even get him even. He has 13 home runs, 68 RBIs. 3-1 pitch. Willie takes the strike. So the soft-spoken Yankee second baseman has gone all the way with Rich Gossage. 3-2. Gossage delivers, ground ball to shortstop. Gary Temple in one hand fires across the mound, and there's 2 out. So that takes away a bit of the drama, but not quite all of it, as Thurman Munson now represents the last out to the National League and the last hope for the American League, and he gets a standing ovation. Listen. Last year's American League most valuable player, with 2 down, 9th inning, 7-5 Nationals. Swings at a fastball and doesn't get it. 0-1. Been a seesaw game. 1 minute it looked like it's out of sight. 5-0 Nationals. Suddenly the American League is very much in it with the tying runs aboard, and they trail 5-3. Then the National League starts to run away and hide 7-3, and the American League has bounced back to make it close 7-5. The strike one breaking ball is swung on and missed. Munson way out in front of it. 0-2. He's a big league ball player with all of his experience pressing right now. You bet he is, especially here in the Bronx. 0-2 to Thurman Munson. Goss is ready, delivers, and it's fouled away off to the right upstairs. National League 7, American League 5. 2 down, bases empty, and the count 0-2 to pinch hitter Thurman Munson. So Jason Thompson and Wayne Gross are the only 2 healthy players, along with pitcher Jim Slayton, who did not get into the game for the American League. Here's the 0-2 pitch, way outside to the backstop, ball 1. And the only somewhat healthy player, he does have a bad knee, who did not get into the game for the National League, Ken Griffey. So both managers wheeling and dealing, and they really got down to the nub here in the 9th inning with 2 outs. Gossage, both feet on the rubber, staring down to John Stearns. Thurman Munson waiting. Right-hander ready in the 1-2 pitch. Half swing, strike 3, says Bill Kunkel, and it's all over. And would you know, an ex-Yankee pitcher, now umpire, calls out Thurman Munson at Yankee Stadium, and the 1977 All-Star Game is history. And the National League has won 6 straight, 14 out of 15, 29 and 18 with 1 tie down through the years. The National League with 7 runs, 9 hits, and 1 error. The American League, 5 runs, 8 hits, and no errors. I would guess if there be such an animal, the winning pitcher would be Don Sutton and the losing pitcher would be Jim Farmer. And to repeat, home runs by Joe Morgan, a 2-run home run by Greg Luzinski, a home run by Steve Garvey, and a 2-run home run by George Scott. 56,683. And this is Vin Scully saying it's been a pleasure, Brett.
Ben, I'll tell you, it was not without a struggle tonight. Last year's game in Philadelphia was completely one-sided, dominated by the National League, a 7-1 victory. Here tonight, they appeared to be winging until that 6th inning you described, when the American League jumped back in on that single by Richie Zisk. Willie Randolph drove in.